Well, hello, my favorite people. How are you today? Hopefully, living a vibrant and dangerous life. Today, we're going to go into some crazy territories. You know what I'm talking about? We're going to go into all kinds of just secret societies, prophets of Baal, prophets of Asherah, giant showdowns where 850 monsters are cut to the ground. We're going to also dig into the origins of all kinds of allegiances and secret oaths that the people of our country say on a regular basis and where those things came from, because we live in a ridiculous world, a very different world than the one that we thought we were part of. That's why we're doing this War of the Ages series, because there's no way around it. You're living in a world of light versus darkness, of a kingdom of dragons fighting the kingdom of the sons of men. We're literally trying to fight back against literal dragons. It's a crazy time to be alive. It's a wonderful time to be alive. And you know what? We just did not inherit the realities about how the world actually works and how it functions and how these secret societies govern our lives and where do they really get their shots from? Where do they get the ammunition for their guns? So check this out. This is amazing. Someone sent me an incredible gift, a silver bullet. For all the lycanths, you got to deal with lycanthropy and werewolves. Silver. I've never used silver to kill a werewolf. Not yet. One can hope. This totally got me sidetracked for a second here. I got to tell you something about something I researched because, I was considering how are we going to fight all of these crazy creatures, right? These beasts that come up out of the bowels of the earth because they're there. They're real. They live in deep underground bases all around us. But on the side note of that, I was looking into how do we make our own bullets, weapons, and munitions for it. And I got into this stuff called makume, which is like a blend of copper and silver. I was like, why don't we just blend the two? Because it's just so pretty. I love copper and silver. The problem with trying to just do it by making your own, I tried to forge it together to create my own little blades out of this. I have an episode called Weapons to Fight Giants. You can go watch. I talk a lot more about it. But one of the things that I got into, I was like, I started making my own bullets, right? I don't talk a lot about firearms and stuff because, it's another time. It gets a different side of me going that I don't always need. You know what I'm saying? Some of you get it. Some of you don't. It gets the hunter out. And we don't always need that hunter. No, we really don't. But I could go into that someday. That being said, I was loading my own bullets at the time, making my own ammunition. And I was loading 9mm and 308, the standard stuff, 45 also at the time. And I was like, man, I just want to make my own silver and copper bullets. It would be fantastic. So that's when I started researching something called PMCs, powdered metal clays. Because you can buy these clays and then bake them and they literally will turn into that metal. You can get it for pure gold, pure silver, pure copper, bronze, because I love bronze. I wanted to make a lot of weapons out of bronze. And anyways, PMC is powder metal clays. So if you don't have a forge to be able to do this stuff for yourself, you can make your own into any shape. It's literally just clay, pure clay. And then when you fire it, when you heat it up in an oven, it turns into that metal. And so you can make really cool. People use it for jewelry a lot, but I was like, we should make it into tiny knives. You know what I'm saying? We should make knives out of PMC. We could have bronze daggers and copper and silver daggers and stuff like that. So, hey, that's a pearl for any of you that are thinking about making weapons for the beasts of the earth that are coming out. It says a third of people are going to die from famine and war and plagues and the beasts of the earth. It's a serious deal. Some serious beasts coming out of the earth. You know what I'm saying? I know not all of you think you'll be around for that stuff, but I pray every day and I long for the opportunity to be here to witness these things because it says in the scriptures, prophets have longed to look into these things to see these matters come to pass. We should be like them. We should long to get to see the words of prophecy come to fruition in our lives. That's the goal. That's the joy, is getting to see these things come to reality. There's a lot of you who've had dreams or visions or insights, or we feel like revelations from the Father about things that were going to take place in your life. And then some of you have really got to see those things take place. And it's an undeniable reality for many of you. Like my wife and I had dreams about Naomi, literally, before we had her. Chelsea had a dream that she was standing on a beach looking at this little girl and me on this rocky cliff face going up it. And you know what? It came to pass. On our first year on the road, there's a video. We have this series called Rolling with the Reynolds. And she literally was sitting there at Laguna Beach as Treasure Cove on the way towards Treasure Cove. And she watched me run out in the distance. And then she saw Naomi chasing. It was this little blonde haired kind of girl, this little or brunette kind of girl that was looking away from her and just looking away. And she was like, that's Naomi. She'd known that from the day we started talking about all this stuff. And that's why we knew our daughter's name was going to be Naomi. She was like, Yah gave her a dream about it, It's a beautiful way. It's like supernatural insight into how to conquer the fears that come across us because, sometimes you're afraid that you're going to die and you got to remember the words that the Father's given you, those comforts that he's given you. Some of it's dreams, some of it's in revelations and words of knowledge. Like it says that the Spirit can pour out on us. And those are things to be relied upon and things not to lose heart in. You know what I'm saying? One of those people we're going to talk about today, Elijah, he got some serious words from Yahuwah. And then he had some ridiculous, like, what the heck? Everything just went to terrible all at once. And this, I got down this rabbit hole. I've got a lot of books around me, you guys. I got a lot of reference reading material. We're going to talk about invisible electric dragons. I want to do a whole series on this book. This is called The Invisible Rainbow by Arthur Furstenberg. I love this book so much. This is stuff that was like this is one of the first big historical texts that I devoured like immediately when I started reading it. I couldn't stop. And I did a little bit of notes about it and some videos about it years ago. But there's some points in there that we're going to talk about because, Luke 10 started out in Luke 10, and then it just launched me in all kinds of research stuff. Yeah. I went down this rabbit hole too. This is called The Secrets of Anti-Gravity Propulsion, Tesla, UFOs, and Classified Aerospace Technology. This is by P. La Violette. I love this book so far. I'm just going to tell you. I have this secret passion for aerodynamics and crazy electrogravitics. I don't talk about it very often because there's a lot going on, but this is the aircraft that I've always wanted to truly understand because I've seen some funky stuff at the United States Air Force Academy, and one of which involved some purple glows coming off of this plane, which was strange, peculiar anomalies coming off of the B-2. So then I'm starting to learn about the ionization of stuff that takes place. But it's not ionic winds. It's electrogravitic. They're creating a gravity well at the front of the plane. It's cool stuff. Anyways, we'll get there. I got a lot of places to go. Not enough time to get there through it all because I still got a family that's just relentless. It's wonderful and crazy all at the same time. But that being said, let's jump into Luke 10, shall we? Come along with me on a journey. We're going to also go into we'll get there. We'll see where it goes. As you guys know, my mind works like 10,000 branches of different trees coming together all at the same time. It's a wonderful conglomerate of crazy memories and interesting antidotes of evidence of things I've picked up along the way. All right, this is Luke 10. Check this out, y'all. He's commanding his disciples to go out. There wasn't just 12. I know we talk about the 12 a lot. They get a lot of press coverage, I'm seeing in the scriptures, but there was more. Like there was a lot more at times. And then there was a lot less at times because, you can give people the truth, like doses of it. The truth, you'd be like, here's a little bit of it. And then you give them a little bit more and they're like puking on it. They're just like too full. You give them a little bit more than that. And they're just like, some of them are just like, I can't even handle this. And it's a way to sift people. Is how much truth you actually reveal to them. The scriptures are like that. You get like doses of it as you go along until you get to these some of these teachings are really hard. And you're like, this is very hard. There are a lot of people that left Yeshua over time. It's like incrementally. And at times he would intentionally say like saltier truths. It's just like throwing salt in people's eyes and they would leave him. He's like, yeah. The truth is very hard for a lot of people to handle because what it requires in order to embrace it is humility. And pride is unfortunately the very dendritic root system that the hearts of sin lie in. Most of us are just spellbound by pride. It's hard for us to admit that we've been duped. It's hard for us to admit that, yes, we inherited lies and vanity and falsehood from our fathers. They literally, we got raised by liars, and that sucks. Even our good intentioned family members, we love them, but they taught us a bunch of lies too, and that sucks too. So we got to deal with each and every one of those areas as we go through this. But check this out. Here's what. And after this, the master appointed 70 others and sent them 2 by 2 ahead of him into every city and place where he himself was about to go. Then he said to them, the harvest is great, but the workers are few. Therefore, pray the master of the harvest to send out workers into his harvest. Go, see, I send you out as lambs into the midst of wolves. And I asked my girls on Shabbat when we were reading this, I was like, hey, what would that be like to go out as little sheep, little lambs, by the way, lambs, nursing, suckling lambs. They're super soggy. I'll just be honest. Little baby lambs are ridiculously easy to kill. Super easy to kill. We had dogs kill them. We had dogs. Dadgummit, dogs. Don't even get me started. They're wolves in disguise, masquerading wolves. I know some of you are like, my dog. I understand. Some of you have cute little wonderful dogs. They're great companions to you. I'm not trying to deride on any of those. I'm talking about wolves in the context of dogs on people's land with animals. The number one killer of every single meat or animal that I ever had is dogs. Dogs are the major problem in every community we've ever been a part of. Dogs. Single problem. Dogs. Dadgummit. Anyways, you got to do a parasite detox if you have dogs. Just trust me. You'll thank me later. Get rid of those tapeworms and all the other parasites that came along with your dogs when they licked your face after they licked their butts. Tuck it away. Cats are even worse. I'm not trying to deride on your cats. I'm just saying they spread parasites that consume you and will play mind games. You literally have parasitic mind control inside you from those cats. It's called toxoplasmosis. If you don't know about it, it's not a joke. It literally hijacks your brain. It makes you do stuff you wouldn't want to do. Like it shuts down areas of your brain that make you attracted to stuff that you shouldn't be attracted to. That's what it does in mice. It goes inside mice and it takes over their minds. It's like a demon inside them. It's like, you want to be near the cats. Come near the cats. You'll love the cats. It makes them sexually attracted to cats. I'm not joking, literally. And so then they go be around cats until they get eaten. And then the parasite's like, sucker, I got you. Now I'm inside the cat intestine where I want to propagate and multiply. Yes. It's literally how it works, you guys. Parasites are crazy. The vast majority of all the diseases and problems that you got going on in your life or the lives of anybody else around you, parasites. Here's another book I haven't read in a while. Boom. Why everything you thought you knew about disease is wrong. What really makes you ill? Oh, yeah. This is by Don Lester and David Parker. I devoured this one too 3 years ago. Dang. Paradigm shifter. Everything I've ever been taught. There's another one that's like everything you've been taught about the Civil War is a lie. That's a great one too. Anyways, we can go down all these rabbit holes. I just want to sit here and read you guys the entirety of these books sometimes. I know some of you want me to, and I would like to. Pray that Yah gives me strength, because the harvest indeed is plentiful and the workers are few. Pray for other people to go out and do this likewise, you guys. You could sit there and just record the entirety of a book and just post it. Bless people like you wouldn't even imagine. There's stuff that you can do that just advances the kingdom of truth continually. You just have to put in the labor one time. Like I've recorded the audio scriptures one time. It took me a long time. In my mind, 60 took me like 2 months. 2 months. That was a lot of investment of time, but it's still bearing fruit. That's the good stuff we got to do, you guys. Those are good things. I was asking my children, though, about lambs going out amongst wolves. They were like, oh, they're going to get eaten, Dad. I was like, you're dang right they're going to get eaten. Super easy. Lambs are super easy to kill. They get killed off by our donkey. We had a donkey that was stomping the heads in of lambs. It was horrible. I shot that donkey. And then I used a knife. Always finish with the knife. Then it was a ridiculous, the most insane, hysterical story about me trying to dispose of a donkey's body. You ever had that problem in your life? Oh my gosh. I made a mess of it. It was hysterically bad. I'd never been more scared that I was going to jail. I was like, of all the things I've done in my life, I'm going to get busted for a donkey's body. Dadgummit. Seriously. Be careful how you dispose of donkeys' bodies. Some places it's a big frowned upon. In other places, they don't care. They're like, sweet fertilizer for my coyotes. Fantastic. Anyways, I'm in rare form. Hang in there. Donkeys killed my lambs. Anything can kill a lamb. Lambs can kill other lambs. It's ridiculous. They're shockingly simple targets. However, we're sitting here being told that we're the lambs in the story. Yeshua's like, hey, I'm sending you out like the lambs. He literally tells them to go out like this. Check this out. Do not take a purse, nor a bag, nor sandals, and greet no one along the way. You're going to be very vulnerable. Literally. Think about this, you guys. If some of you have literally taken this seriously, I know it. You've sold everything you've had. You've literally just gone on to follow the Father and wherever he leads you. Like, I'm just going to go minister to people. Wherever he leads me, we'll go. That's it. That takes great faith. And you get to experience all kinds of tribulations and wonderful provisions from all kinds of peculiar people. And if indeed, whatever house you enter, first say peace to this house. And if indeed a son of peace is there, your peace shall rest on it. And if not, it shall return to you. And stay in the same house, eating and drinking whatever with him. For the laborer is worthy of his wages. Do not move from house to house. And into whatever city you enter, they receive you. Eat whatever is placed before you. And heal the sick there, and say to them, the reign of Elohim has come near to you. And into whatever city you enter, they do not receive you. Go out into its streets and say, even the dust of your city which clings to us, we wipe off against you. But know this, that the reign of Elohim has come near to you. And I say to you that it shall be more bearable for Sodom in that day than for that city. Woe to you, Chorazin! Woe to you, Bethsaida! For if the miracles which were done in you had been done in Zor and Sidon, they would have repented long ago, sitting in sackcloth and ashes. But it shall be more bearable for Zor and Sidon at the judgment than for you. And you, Capernaum, who are exalted to the heaven, shall be brought down to Sheol. He who hears you hears me, and he who rejects you rejects me, and he who rejects me rejects him who sent me. And the 70 returned with joy, saying, Master, even the demons are subject to us in your name. This is all about the legal authority for the rest of the entire time. As we talk about all of these different avenues of where these secret societies and all the different demon overlords and all the different principalities, how they govern, how they operate, how their prophets operate, how their priests operate, as we go into all this stuff, I want you to never lose sight of this. This is all about a legal authority. Everything when it comes to spiritual warfare and how we are able to engage in the principality wars that we're dealing with on a regular basis has to do with legal rights, which is why it's imperative that you understand your identity as well as understanding the rules of engagement. What are the legal grounds that the adversaries of our kingdom have to persecute us? Like, what are the legal confines with which they can say, hey, they are in transgression, or they have a cursed object with them, right? Some of these objects, some of these things that we have in our house, in our life, are legal doors for the enemy to come in and cause harm, cause ruin, cause night terrors, cause disease, cause sickness, cause ailments, cause problems in our relationships, our marriage. There's literally objects, physical objects that are in our life that we inherited. A lot of times, it's not even just that maybe you intentionally went and bought something, some occult books, some new age books. We're going to talk about Lucius Trust and where some of these charged writings, these demonic doctrines of demons, like where do they come from and how do they work their way into people's lives? Where, like, how do they work their way into people's lives and give them the opportunity for that wicked seed of the serpent to come and propagate, to be fruitful? So never lose sight of these things, because as you learn your identity, you must also learn that there's like a set of instructions from the beginning of the scriptures to the end about how a man should live and how a woman should live their life. These are applicable to us still in today. And so if we choose to transgress those, like it says, sin is the transgression of the law in 1 John. That's important. You should know what sin is. It's not missing the mark. Not one time in the Bible does it say, and sin is missing of the mark. It doesn't say that. Not one time. Sin is the transgression of the law, of the Torah. That's important. So then you understand, what is the Torah? The loving instructions of Yahuwah. That makes sense. You're like, yeah, if I don't do what my dad says, that's definitely like a sin against him, right? So this is really important, because as we walk these things out, we're going to see areas where people kept these commands and then were blessed by it, and other times where they broke these commands and were cursed by it. And that's important for us to be able to know. But the one that we're appealing to is the Torah that came in the flesh, Yeshua. He gave us this freedom of how to walk these things out. He showed us the way to live these things out. And you know what? It's imperative that we learn how to walk in his authority, because it's his authority that grants us the ability to overcome our adversary, to be able to stand in the innocence of our Messiah and his perfected work, to know that we are freed from that absolute guarantee of death. Like, we are granted irrevocable immortality when he says so. When we do these things and we are saved by him, we literally have the breastplate of truth. Like, the breastplate of righteousness, like it talks about in the book of Isaiah and it talks about in the book of Ephesians. Like, we literally get to put the gospels of peace upon our feet. And literally we get to go forth and bring this message of deliverance to the nations. But that's because of what he has done for us and the perfected work of his trampling death under his feet and then raising to life and leading a group of hosts with him. I mean, his work of what he did can never be undermined or underplayed. But the enemy has set up so many institutions to try to strip away our understanding of his mighty deeds and how he did these things and how he was clothed with power from on high in order to walk out and live such a voraciously potent life against the kingdom of darkness. But this is what he witnessed. He saw from the beginning these events take place. And he said to them, I saw Satan falling out of the heaven as lightning. See, I give you the authority to trample on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and none at all shall hurt you. But do not rejoice in this, that the spirits are subject to you, but rather rejoice because your names have been written in the heavens. In that hour, Yeshua exalted in the spirit and said, I praise you, Father, master of the heaven and the earth, that you have hidden these matters from clever and learned ones and did reveal them to babes. Yes, Father, because thus it was well-pleasing in your sight. All has been delivered to me by my Father, and no one who knows the Son is, no one who knows who the Son is except the Father, and who the Father is except the Son, and he to whom the Son wishes to reveal him. And turning to his taught ones, he said separately, blessed are the eyes that see what you see. For I say to you that many prophets and sovereigns have wished to see what you see and have not seen it, and to hear what you hear and have not heard it. This is those gifts that he's giving us. We now live in a time where we get to hear how many of these incredible things came to pass. How did he orchestrate a plan of deliverance? How did he orchestrate a plan of rescue, of ransom, of restoration? And he's talking about these sovereigns and these prophets. And if you have not read the books of like First and Second Kings or First and Second Samuel, you're gonna lack, or First and Second Chronicles, you're gonna lack a lot of context for why these words are so powerful. Because when you say these words to somebody who grew up their whole life hearing the Torah, hearing the prophets, hearing the writings, they would have context. They would have a depth of understanding about just what he meant there. Like as soon as I read that, I thought about sovereigns and prophets. I immediately thought about Elijah. I thought about Eliyahu, right? And I thought about King Ahab. And then I thought about King Asa. And I thought about King Joash and Hezekiah. And I thought about Manasseh. And I thought about Isaiah and Jeremiah and Habakkuk. Like these names mean so much to me because I've known their stories. I've saturated myself in their stories, in their experiences, what it was like for Jeremiah. People call him the weeping prophet. But you read through Jeremiah, that was one of the hardest books for me to read. It took me longer to read through the book of Jeremiah in that audio recording. It took a long time to read through that book because I relate to the experiences of what Jeremiah saw, like in Jeremiah 19. This is an important chapter. I used to read this chapter every day to start my day. That's going to sound really bizarre to some of you guys, but I lived through seeing people do these things, and I wanted to hear how Yahuwah dealt with him, And for me, it was a deepening of my understanding of when judgment finally comes to pass, when somebody that has prayed for it their whole life. Like I have been praying to see these gods, these immortals, these other mighty ones be judged. I want to see them receive mishpat, justice. Because like it says in Psalm 80 and Psalm 2, like they were supposed to judge righteously. In Psalm 82, they were divided. Yahuwah divided the nations according to the sons of Elohim, like the immortals. He divided them and chose one nation to be his, and he turned over the rest of the nations to these wicked immortals. That's what the people wanted. The people collectively demanded it back at Babel. They gathered themselves together and submitted to the mystery religions, and they wanted to exalt the master mason, Nimrod. They wanted him to be their king over them, their God over them. They wanted to exalt the immortals above Yahuwah Elohim Sevaoth. The Lord of hosts is what I grew up knowing him. The commander of the heavenly armies was able to wage a war against that ideology and destroy it and scatter that information, right? He scattered their languages and he scattered the knowledge, the gnosis of these other immortals and the methods by which they took captive all the sons of men. Those immortals have fruits of their labors. They have priests and priestesses that worship them, and they teach the nations to do like that. We're going to read about that in Jeremiah here. We're going to talk about it a bunch in First Kings, where we're going to be going to after this, okay? This is Jeremiah 19. This is Jeremiah going through seeing the horrific things that are taking place in the nation of Israel because they did not drive out the pagans. They didn't drive out those that worshiped these other mighty ones. And the nation now is hundreds of years of following pagan idolatry. And that's not just some kind of thing where like people are doing like bowing down to idols, like we talked about, you guys, like the teraphim, where they're literally sacrificing their firstborn son and shrinking their head and putting copper coins in their mouth with the name of another god on it. And then they're lighting candles to it. And then by the power of the stars of these heavenly hosts that are above us, they're literally communing with them, and it's telling them the future. Like these things actually talk to these people. They really did when they took their children, like it says here. Thus said Yahuwah, go and get a potter's earthen jug, and take some of the elders of the people and some of the elders of the priests. Then you shall go out to the valley of the son of Hinnom, which is by the entry of the potsherd gate, and shall proclaim there these words that I speak to you, and shall say, hear the word of Yahuwah, O sovereigns of Yehuda and inhabitants of Jerusalem. Thus said Yahuwah of hosts, the Elohim of Yisrael. See, I am bringing evil on this place that makes the ears tingle of all who hear it, because they have forsaken me and have profaned this place and have burned incense on it to other mighty ones, whom neither they nor their fathers nor the sovereigns of Yehuda have known. And they have filled this place with the blood of the innocents, and have built the high places of Baal to burn their sons with fire for an ascending offerings to Baal, which I did not command nor speak, nor did it come into my heart. Therefore, see, the days are coming, declares Yahuwah, that this place shall be no more called Topheth, or the valley of the son Hinnom, but rather the valley of slaughter. And I shall pour out the counsel of Yehuda and Jerusalem in this place, and I shall make them fall by the sword before their enemies, and by the hands of those who seek their lives. And I shall give their corpses as meat for the birds of the heavens and for the beasts of the earth. And I shall make this city a ruin and a hissing. Everyone who passeth by it appalled and hisses because of all its plagues. And I shall make them eat the flesh of their sons and the flesh of their daughters, and to eat one another's flesh in the siege and in the distress with which their enemies and those who seek their lives distress them. And you shall break the jug before the eyes of the men who go with you, and shall say, Thus said Yahuwah, even so I break this people and this city as one breaks a potter's vessel, which one is unable to repair again, and let them bury them in Topheth till there is no place to bury them. This is literally the valley of the son Hinnom is the place that was set apart for people like the priests of Baal here, the prophets of Baal we read about in First Kings. They would take their children out there, and this is where they would sacrifice them to these other mighty ones, to these immortals. Baal was a god of rain, right, and fertility. Okay, for us that are not farmers, it doesn't really matter that much. But when you've labored so diligently and you're dependent on rains to come in the right season, in the right amounts. Otherwise, you lose all your crops and you starve, or you have no income. You can't support yourself or your family. It's a big deal. And these people were literally bound up with these other mighty ones like Asherah, another fertility goddess. They would bind themselves to these things, and they were willing to literally give up one of their children so that these gods would bless them with rain, that they would be prosperous, that there would be animals reproducing, that there wouldn't be any miscarriages, right? This is what these people had in exchange for them. And we, in a modern time, think this is fairy tales. Like it's a default. We've been so lied to through our education system to think that this wasn't reality, that this didn't actually change things. When people did this, these immortals would respond. They would bless them. Because why would they keep doing it, you guys, if it didn't work? Why would they keep doing it year after year, generation after generation, hundreds of years now, thousands of years now? Why do people still go and do this stuff? Because it works. Because they are dialing in to the spiritual phone book of these other gods, and they're getting their answers from them. And because of that, it reinforces for them why they need to keep doing it. And these people did these acts when they lit incense to these other gods, when they gave them offerings and tithes and contributions. They literally responded to them. Okay. They had the power to influence things, they have the power to change the physical nature of the experiences of the world around us. Like literally, if you read the book of Job, when Satan is literally Hasatan, right, is personally going after Job, right? He's like, I can't do anything to Job. Yahuwah's like, have you ever considered my servant? He's like, I can't do anything to him. You have placed a hedge of protection around him. That's why he's so blessed. There's nothing I can do to touch him. Okay. That's because Job was an upright man, righteous, a man without sin and transgression. Now we see in the story, Job is interceding and praying for his sons and daughters on their day because they're celebrating their birthdays, you guys. Something to consider. It's a pagan practice, you guys. You go ahead, dig into the origins of birthdays and celebrations. In the occult world, that's their high day. Never in the scriptures will you find any righteous people following that act. You're going to see people like Pharaoh killing people on their birthday. You're going to see King Herod or King Herod, the one who beheads John the Baptist on his birthday. You're going to see righteous people die on birthdays. It's not a good thing, you guys. Just something to consider. Not a day of self-worship. Not a day for everyone to bow down and worship you. If the Father concealed Yeshua's very birthday from us for a reason, he didn't want us to go follow the pagans. I'm telling you guys. If he wanted to exalt or exonerate any single day of any time where a birthday was important, it would have been our Messiah's. But it's not December 21st or December 25th by no stretch of the imaginations or worshiping pagans. It sucks, you guys. I know. But we worship all kinds of immortals on their days and celebrate their birthdays because that's the pagan traditions. That's been the practice of these gods for a long time, is to venerate their days. But it's not supposed to be that way. Something to consider. That being said, these gods have a literal ability to influence people's lives in the physical realm. That's why people do these things, to honor them and exalt them and lift them up. Okay. We're going to go back to First Kings. Jump over here. I love this book so much. First and Second Kings are some of my absolute favorite books in the entire scriptures to read, because we get to see how Yahuwah dealt with his people at times when they were in awesome revival. Like, you get really desiring of revival, like when you read through these scriptures. That's why Jeremiah is really hard to read. Jeremiah is really hard to read because the guy is watching people make stupid decisions over and over and over again. Like, Yah sends so many warnings out through his mouth, and that's exhausting. Like, you're constantly going to a people that harden their necks to resist what you have to say to them. That sucks. That gets really old, and instead they choose to embrace wickedness time after time after time. But we're going to go back a little bit before Elijah's story to get you guys a little context of what's going down here. Because if you just jump into the crazy cool miracle side of all the fun stuff that's happening in Elijah's story, you're not going to understand the context of why it was such a showdown at Mount Carmel, when there's like, finally that mishpat judgment against these oath keepers finally takes place. Like, their blood finally gets spilled, and you're like, that's right. Okay, this is King Asa here. You ready? This gives you, every time in the scripture, when you go through First and Second Kings, you're going to get a synopsis of people's lives, whether or not the king was righteous or wicked. Okay, in chapter 15, and in the 18th year of the sovereign of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, Abiam became sovereign over Yehuda. He reigned 3 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Maacah, the granddaughter of Abishalom. And he walked in all the sins of his fathers, which he had done before him. And his heart was not perfect to Yahuwah his Elohim, as was the heart of his father David. But for David's sake, Yahuwah his Elohim gave him a lamp in Jerusalem to raise up his son after him by establishing Jerusalem. For David did what was right in the eyes of Yahuwah, and did not turn aside from all that he commanded him all the days of his life, except in the matter of Uriah the Hittite. And there was fighting between Jeroboam and Rehoboam all the days of his life. And all the rest of the acts of Abiam and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Yehuda? And there was fighting between Abiam and Jeroboam. So Abiam slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city of David. And Asa, his son, reigned in his place. So just understand, this is who Asa's dad was and who his grandpa was, okay? People that followed after the hearts of darkness, people that embraced all of those celestial phone books, the people that were willing to do the spiritual wickedness and physically lead the people into bondage, okay? That was who he was raised by. But understand, he breaks the curse. He breaks the cycle. Listen to this. And Asa became sovereign over Yehuda, and he reigned 41 years in Jerusalem. And his grandmother's name was Maacah, the granddaughter of Abishalom. And Asa did what was right in the eyes of Yahuwah, as his father David had done, and put away the cult prostitutes from the land, and removed all the idols that his father had made. This is a huge statement, you guys. Like, he also removed Maacah, his grandmother, from being sovereign as his mother, because she had made an abominable image for Asherah. And Asa cut down her abominable image and burned it by the Wadi of Kidron. That's how to deal with those charged objects, like things you inherited from family members, jewelry, stuff that was used by Freemasons or the Daughters of the Eastern Star, Knights of Columbus and Knights Templar, and all these just pagan, disgusting Luciferian organizations. These things are supercharged. They're not something you should keep around. Don't melt down the gold. Don't. It says in the Torah, don't even desire the gold that these idols are made of. Don't even desire. Get rid of it. Like, they cut it down. They stomp it. A lot of times they break it with hammers, and if they can, they burn it with fire. Right? They get rid of it. Don't keep it. Don't covet the gold that's on these things. It's cursed. Okay, this is what happened in Jericho. You got a guy, Achan. They go in there. Everything in Jericho is cursed. Everything. They're like, listen, don't touch it. None of it's for you. Unless it can pass through the fire and be transformed and melted down. All of it was going to be the tithe to Yahuwah. Jericho was like the first time they go into the promised land, right? And it's like the first showdown. Crazy, incredible story. He's like, don't touch any of it. Don't covet any of it. He's like, any of the things, the bronze, the silver, and the gold, that stuff that can get melted down, pass through the fire, that can get dedicated to Yahuwah. But otherwise, everything's got to go through the fire. Everything's got to be destroyed here. Well, then this guy Achan, he coveted it, right? He coveted it. Greediness for gain, it says, is idolatry. So we got to be careful. Guard against that. That greediness for gain, coveted it. He hid the stuff in his tent. The people go out to battle the next day. They go to fight this city called Ai. It's like a village compared to Jericho. Jericho was like super fortress, giants, gigantic giants who used to sacrifice children into the walls of their building called inurement in order to supercharge it with these demonic stones. That blood would cry out, and it would be like a spiritual hedge of protection for them against their enemies. This is why you had them fight with shofars and obedience, silence. They literally marched around silently until they blew their shofars on the seventh day. Something to consider. It's awesome stuff. Anyways, Achan hid this gold under his tent and these garments from Babylon, these beautiful garments. Don't covet the garments. He's sitting there. Everyone goes out to battle, fight against these people in Ai. And he's like, we don't need a big army to fight against. It's just a little Ai. And they go out and they get their butts kicked. A bunch of, I think 18 guys die. Some dudes die. It's a big deal. Joshua and all the people are like, what the heck? Second city they fought. And people are dead. It's not good. They're freaking out. They're like, what happened? And Joshua is like, why? Yahweh, why? Like, what the heck? Sometimes you have great victories in your life, and then all of a sudden they turn into terrible, crushing defeats. All of a sudden you're like, why? Why? You might have an Achan in your camp. Just saying. You might have some cursed objects inside your house, inside your things of your dominion that should get purged out of there, right? Movies, CDs, books, stuff that shouldn't be in there. Just saying. Opens the door to the enemy. Achan, Yahweh is like, answers Joshua, and he's like, listen, there's a cursed thing in your camp. Somebody took stuff that they shouldn't have had, and because of that, I am resisting you. So then he inquires of Yahuwah who it is that has it. They figure out it's Achan. They bring Achan out in front of everyone. They're like, tell us what you did. He's like, I coveted this stuff. Sorry, kind of. I just wanted it. And so he dies, and all of his stuff and all of those that were in his household, major consequences for that transgression, right? And then they go up to beat Ai, and they go and attack it. It's great. Special warfare tactics. Anytime you want to study special warfare, always go to Joshua. Judges too. It's great. And they're like, don't attack it just from the front. Set people behind it. We're going to set an ambush for them. So they run out, attack it, and then they act like they're scared. They're like, we're losing. This is called a feigned retreat, by the way. They're like, oh, we're losing. So they run away. The Israelites run away from the people of Ai, and the people of Ai are like, look at these doofus Israelites again coming at us. Bros, let's kill them. So they run out, chase them, every man leaves the city. City's open, the gates are open, and then all the people of Israel that were hiding in ambush sneak into Ai. They light it on fire, and that's the signal for all the Israelites to turn that were running. They're like, oh, we're losing. And then they turn around. They're like, suckers, we got you now. And then they turn and attack them from what's called like a pincher move too. So then they get attacked from the rear and attacked from the front, and then they just get decimated and they blot them out. And then they kill the king of Ai. It's just a beautiful story. It is. It's a beautiful story because you got to know the context of who these people were. Like, they weren't just bad. They weren't just like some tribe living in this land that they took over. These people were steeped, saturated in iniquity. They were literally so saturated in the level of darkness that this was their normal life, was like butchering and slaughtering of their children, cannibalism, like the worst kinds of behaviors that were taking place there. Abraham literally was told that he's not going to go into the land. His children aren't going to go into the land till the iniquity of the Amorites is full. There was literally a threshold of evil that had to take place in these people before Yahuwah was going to pour out his wrath in there. And unfortunately, I think that's kind of what we're dealing with today. And it sucks because I know the level of iniquity in this land is saturated. Like, I can drive across this country and find these filthy, disgusting oath-keeping groups sacrificing and butchering and slaughtering innocents all over it. I have never been in any state where I can't find it. Not one. I've never not been able to find these people and their disgusting fingerprints of all their disgusting, abominable matters. It's everywhere. It's saturating the society. That being said, there's many people who are not voluntarily partaking in it. However, because of the way our society is structured, we are endorsing it. We are financing it. We're supporting organizations, corporate organizations, through stocks and bonds and things that we hold, through our 401k plans, our retirement plans, through our investments. We're literally financing kingdoms of blood to prosper. We're literally making our wealth off of the most abominable practices known to man. That sucks, and that's something you got to deal with. If you don't directly manage your finances, your money, you are held accountable for all of it. Yahweh's going to hold you accountable for everything you've done with everything you've been entrusted, including every single nickel and dime that he gave you and what you did with it, and whether or not you went along with empowering this kingdom of darkness or not. Something to consider. Invest in kingdom work, right? Seriously, it's very, very powerful. The Muslim community is incredibly effective at taking care of each other, right? When I was in Afghanistan, they would take over areas just time and time again, right? They come over to this country, they immigrate over here, and they would take over entire regions. People are like, this is horrible. How do they do this? It's because they had a rule that a dollar could not leave a Muslim's hand until it had been spent by by 7 other Muslims, right? So that means $1 had to go to one Muslim and then another Muslim and another and another and another 7 times before it was supposed to leave that community. This is ensuring that the wealth was staying within other brothers in their belief. That's an effective tool. Some of you can consider that, like trying to find ways to support other brothers and sisters. We need to also resurrect those trade skill sets so that we can be able to be effective in doing that. But I'm a little sidetracked here. Hang with me for a second. The reason we are in such an uphill battle against all of these agents of evil is because of how effective they have been at uniting behind common ideological pursuits and their willingness to do whatever it takes in order to accomplish it. They have been willing to do all kinds of evil. And yet, by doing so, they're uniting with others that are willing to do likewise. Whereas they keep us in this state of constant fighting, constant confusion, constant disunification, so that we can never stand on a good foundation to unite an assault against their empire, against their tactics. Right. This is one of the strategies that they put forth in their writings. Okay. A lot of these things came down through this woman named Helena Blavatsky. I'll just go over here for a second. I'll just read a little bit of her origins, because we got to get into Alice Bailey and some of these other people who brought forth their doctrines to the nations. Alice Bailey, though, globalist pantheism. So this is Genesis 6. I'm going to read a little bit from Genesis 6 conspiracy here. This is written by Gary Wayne. This is in the chapter called Secret Societies and the New Age of Atlantis. Globalist pantheism was reinvented as theosophy by the legendary Helena Petrovna Blavatsky and Colonel Henry Steele Olcott on November 17th, 1875 in New York. Blavatsky was born a Russian aristocrat. She spent her childhood studying the occult in her great-grandfather, Prince Paul Dolgoruski's library. Dolgoruski was a high initiate in the rite of strict observance order. Helen joined the Egyptian Brotherhood of Luxor in Cairo, where she became an accomplished occultist with an encyclopedic knowledge. Blavatsky in close contact with all the most influential occultists of her time, during which the Hermetic Brotherhood of Luxor and the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn were the most important theosophical orders providing occult training. Blavatsky published an enormous opus on ancient mythology, Isis Unveiled. Her final work, The Secret Doctrine, is a commentary on the Book of Dizan, supposedly written in Atlantis. Blavatsky believed there have been 5 intelligent races to occupy the earth. We are the 5th, while the Atlanteans, or the giants, were the 4th. During the Middle Ages, theosophist philosophy was housed in Masonry, medieval mysticism, and Rosicrucianism. According to Peter Marshall, the Theosophical Society adopted alchemical and hermetical traditions to build a bridge between science and religion, endeavoring to develop the spiritual powers of humanity. Theosophy evolved to become the nucleus for a universal brotherhood and its definitive synthesis of all religions. It has declared itself to be the all-encompassing, universal, ultra-religion of the future. Theosophy's foundation was originally set in esoteric Buddhism and contained a hierarchy of secret masters or avatars. Yes, you guys, that's your avatars. So just recognize James Cameron, who went down to talk to the Leviathan in the depths of the earth, right? Took down his submarine to go to the bottom of the abyss. Got to go talk to Leviathan. Comes out with avatars. Something to consider. This is what they're talking about when they talk about avatars. They're like, you could just lay down in this machine. It'll transfer your consciousness into these blue giants. This is literally Atlantean ideology. Like, this is Gnosticism being shoved on you. This is theosophy being shoved on you through the movies and the entertainment. You're like, oh, it's so interesting. Like in the newest Avatar, you guys, they are literally jacking into the brain of this creature to pull out its compounds from its brain, like adrenochrome. They're straight up draining out its life benefits. And they're like, listen, it stops aging. It's like, that's what they do to babies. They're like, they do that to children too. Same thing. They're like, we'll just put it in a movie. It'll be funny. It's literally what they do, you guys. This is not anything new. All those priests and these priests we're going to read about, like, where they're like, yeah, they're sacrificing children. They had bone processing facilities after the fact. They like made their bread out of the bones of the sacrificed people. That's what they're talking about when they say they ate cakes sacrificed to Ishtar. They would take Asherah, make cakes for Asherah, the queen of heaven, Mary, what we call her in modern days theology. Queen Mary, Queen of Heaven, that's literally in the scripture. She's called Ishtar. don't worship her, and they make cakes to her. People are like, go take the cakes. Don't touch that stuff, you guys. You have no idea what you're getting into, like drinking of blood and eating of human flesh. Like they seriously are. They literally would drink blood and eat the flesh of people in their practices and their rites. And they still do it today. Latin Mass, you guys, is still them sitting there like a priest says he calls down Jesus out of heaven, puts him on the cross, crucifies him again, slaughters his flesh, pulls out his blood, and makes people eat it. That's what a Mass is. Not a joke. That's total Satanism 101. This is what these people have been doing forever, and they still do it today. They just masquerade in these forms of other religions, but that's always been their tactic, is to take over, infiltrate the enemy camp, the kingdom of righteousness, and sow in these disgusting doctrines of demons, because it's a way that they defeat us. It's a way that they're so good at. It sucks that the enemy is so much better at us at warfare. I'll just say it, man. I am so bored of people in the Christian movement who are sideliners. You know, it's disgustingly frustrating when like we are in a real war against people that are incredibly dedicated to their cause and who unite their resources to fight effectively against us. And I'm like, how are we being so outwitted and how are we being so outgunned so effectively? It should not be this way. We are supposed to make them tremble. It says one of us is supposed to drive 1,000 of them to flee. Two of us should be able to drive back 10,000 of us. That means if you're a husband and wife, you should be able to take on an army of 10,000 without flinching. You should have that kind of confidence when you step out your door that you can engage legions of demons should they show up at your door immediately. We're supposed to have that level of confidence in our Messiah. Like we should not be afraid of these schemes of the enemy. We also should not be ignorant. It's our stinking ignorant of the methods of the devil and all of his little branches of his hierarchy that they are brilliantly strategized against us. Like you have to give respect to the enemy and all of these immortals. They're brilliant in their tactics. And it just, unfortunately, it reminds us how much we have been beguiled, how much we have been set back. Like we're lacking in a basic working understanding of where this stuff comes from. But if you want to be able to know why these ruling elite function and operate this way, it's because this is the kind of iniquity they walk in. They walk in this kind of powerhouse. This is where they're drawing from, right? We are supposed to be walking the dynamite power of his set apart spirit, the Holy Spirit. We're supposed to be flowing in that power and being given wisdom from on high to conquer our enemies, to be able to overcome the wiles and the schemes of the wicked. But it says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. This is why we lose. This is why we lose so often. People are ignorant of these things, and we go around and we're distracted by all these other things. Like I was reading about Martha and Mary. Yeshua shows up at their door, and Mary is like sitting there at her feet of Yeshua. She's like, I want to hear every word he has to say. I want to do everything I can to be around this man. I want to hear the wisdom and the teachings of this man. And Martha is running around dealing with household duties, the things you got to do when you're hosting. Any of you who feel that responsibility when someone walks in your house to provide for them a lot of those nice things that are, right? You're trying to love on them. You're trying to clean up the place, trying to feed them, trying to take care of them. It's not wrong. But she's concerned with many things that were distractions. Martha was taken over with many cares of worry. She's like, Yeshua, why don't you tell Martha to Mary to come back in here and help me? He's like, she's where she should be. But you're distracted by all of these things. I understand the enemy comes in to bring a lot of distractions into our life that keep us from taking the time to diligently seek his face, to learn and study his word, to understand what these things they're talking about really mean. You know, I was just pulling apart. I spent some time in this Hebrew dictionary again, just pulling apart what these words mean. A couple of them that stood out to me as I was going through this story, and we're going to get there because it's important. Like people that are wavering between opinions, people that are having conspiracies. Like, what do these things actually mean? What did it mean to these people back then, and what does it mean today? And how do we fight back against it? You know, my desire in sharing this series and doing this is just, I want you guys to be able to fight back. I want you to be a warrior, you know. We need more. We need allies. We don't need adversaries. There's enough adversaries. But we need people who know their God. They know their mighty one. They know Yahuwah Elohim. And they do wonders. We need to be the remnant, you guys. We were born to be the remnant. We were born to be Yahuwah's special forces. He should be able to rely on us, depend on us to go out and do great deeds for him. That's who we are made to be. Anything else that we've been given in this life we've been sold of. Really, we've been sold short. Nobody promised you the right things in this world. This world didn't promise you the good stuff, you guys. Yahuwah promised you the good stuff if you follow him. And he'll make your dreams come true in ways you can't imagine. He might put to death a lot of your dreams on the way, but he will make dreams of yours come true in ways that were better than you could even imagine. You know what? Let's get back to it, because we got to find out where these people get their power sources. I love you guys. That's why I say this stuff to you. I don't mean to be angry or chastise you guys, like it's a hard battle. I don't always have victory. You know what I'm saying? I'm not always reading my Bible exclusively and studying and all the rest of this stuff. I get distracted by the ways of this world and the cares of this life. And I do a lot of house care and baby rearing and all these other things that sometimes I struggle with as feeling like they're distractions. But you know what? We still have responsibilities that we have to tend to. But it's important for us to develop the discipline to turn towards these things, especially the gift of reading. It requires great discipline to read and to sacrifice of time in order to do so, but it's more fruitful than just listening and watching. All right, Theosophy's philosophy is inconspicuous. According to the Encyclopedia Americana, among the religious systems of India, China, and Egypt, these adepts, sages, and secret masters are revered as highly evolved men who have acquired divine power, who endeavor to develop the new man on earth. Blavatsky conducted seances in which she revealed letters from the Ascended Order of Masters, whom she referred vicariously to as the Great White Brotherhood. Evolution of the soul or the spirit is at the heart of the Theosophist religion. Theosophists believe when the spark of life, the evolving soul, reincarnates into the highest form in sufficient numbers, humankind will ascend to a higher plane of being. Theosophists further believe the human ethos first took human form on planets other than Earth. The last planet was Mars. The next planet will be Venus. At the end of this age, Venus's name is Lucifer, by the way. The Theosophists believe worthy humans will ascend to become the architects of future universes, like Lucifer. Untold numbers have carried the Theosophist torch over the last century, including many powerful dignitaries of our age. The New Age movement of today, according to John Michael Greer, is nothing more than Theosophy plus, drawing all its inspiration from Theosophy's occultism of the last century. Alice Bailey, key important person here, was a major supporter of the Theosophical Society. Bailey founded the Lucis Trust, originally known as Lucifer's Press, an offshoot of the Theosophical Society, designed to publish the teachings from her spirit guides. She also founded the Theosophical Network in 1961, which established arcane schools and organizations such as World Goodwill, which formed another occultist organization called World Union, all dedicated to implementing world government. Bailey's arcane schools teach occult philosophy received by Bailey from her purported Tibetan spirit guides, Katmulu and Dijwal Kul, to initiate a new group of world servers to assist the masters of the Great White Lodge. The White Lodge in Theosophist and occultic systems is a secret snake brotherhood of advanced souls that forms the hidden government of the world. This alleged and extremely powerful organization is further known in the occultism to be the Great White Brotherhood. Ka has found it, and all these groups are directly linked to the World Constitutional Parliament Association. Bailey stated Freemasonry is the training school for advanced occultists. The Lucis Trust and its derivative organizations are plugged into the highest levels of Freemasonry. Past members of the Lucis Trust disquittingly include David Rockefeller, Robert McNamara, Donald Reagan. I know you guys that are diehard Reaganites understand something. Henry Kissinger, Paul Vauclair, George Slutz, all members of the CFR and Trilateral Commission, that's Council of Foreign Relations. All globalist organizations link directly back to pantheistic and Masonic organizations that report to the Great White Lodge. All are the fanatical foes of the true faith. Okay. Alice Bailey put forth in his books, like you guys have read 1984, right? Some of you guys, these are like mandatory readings of you in the education system. You are required, many today, more so than ever, are required to read the books from Lucifer's Press. Understand how doctrines of demons are the required mandatory reading for your family, your children, and the compulsory schooling education system. The enemy makes it required for you to raise your children in reading their lies. Oh, Brave New World, sorry. Aldous Huxley. Different character. It's the one I'm thinking of as well. George Orwell wrote 1984. I misspoke. Some other books I was studying up on. That being said, Alice Bailey put forth in some of his writing He describes the Masonic fraternity as far more occultist than many realize. It's furtive training schools for the advanced occultists. Bailey further notes the three foremost channels preparing for the new age are the church, Freemasonry, and education. Pike definitively refers to Freemasonry as the custodian or special guardian of the secret occult history and knowledge. In the pursuit of New World government, Freemasons will keep sacred as key to the utopian doctrine the notion of destroying both the right to own property and the right to worship the true God. Furthermore, Freemasonry's end game is to prevent the right to set up a government based on the protection of man's God given rights to life, liberty, and property. Freemasonry will seek to obtain equality through the community of all goods and the destruction of all rank and property through progressive socialism. The coming world government will be characterized by tolerating only the future harlot religion of Babel. It will not be based on the rights of the individual, but rather on the collective rights as defined by the harlot religion. And no one will have the right to own any form of property in subordination of the many to which all belongs. This coming utopian New World Order is indispensable for the harmonic conversion to collect the divine spark that is elemental for ascension into godhood for the purported chosen descendants of the Nephilim. This is what is known as collective salvation in the end game of liberation theology. These precepts, of course, slash to the heart of all globalist doctrine, for they are socialistic in nature as they pertain to the individual, but they are capitalistic in their approach to business. I'll bet a limited progressive oligopoly reserved only for rich and powerful adepts of illuminated Freemasonry who believe religion, or monotheism, must go first and then law and property will follow. So that's their target. Understand something. The actual target for their sites that they've fixed their gaze upon, that they want to murder first, is monotheism, is the religions related to monotheism. My conjecture is it not just monotheism as a whole, right? They're going to tolerate it through the Universal Catholic Church, through a lot of the forms of Islam, and through a lot of the forms of modern Christianity. There is a form of monotheism that they're going to target, which is one that will not deviate in their doctrines from a literal interpretation of the scripture, because so much of the insidious doctrines of demons have been sowed into the church. Therefore, much of the church as we know it today is really compliant in this pantheistic, globalistic church. They're already on board with it. They're caught in the snares of being rewarded for keeping quiet about certain topics. They're already being they're already experiencing reciprocity between them and their government for going along with the government's agenda, going along with the universalist agenda. They're already conditioned to receive the bribe from the king, if that makes sense. And so therefore they don't need to destroy a lot of these things, because part of the goal of this of the takeover is to do so without us responding in violence. They don't want to, at the end of the day, they don't want it to be a total massive religious war in the same sense. There's one strategy in which they want that to play out. However, they don't want the resistance from the remnant. They don't want the real, bold, and courageous and empowered warriors of Yahuwah. They never want that remnant to rise up, the people that are really committed to the cause, who are absolutely committed to living a set apart life. They don't want those enemies to wake up. That's the fundamental goal. They've got to do as much as they can to keep them asleep, because if those people rise up, that's the most dangerous force on the face of the earth for this kingdom's agenda. They don't want anything to do with those people because they know they're like sleeping giants. They're like Elijah. They're like this guy who is completely other than all the other prophets of Yahuwah during the time. He's like Jeremiah. They're like Isaiah. They're like these. You got to look out for Daniel. You know what I'm saying? There's some serious heavy hitters in the kingdom of Yah that are alive right now, walking the earth. Powerhouse people who literally pray and the kingdom of darkness shudders. Okay? This is reality. When you start to walk in the power and the anointing of Yahuwah, you are an absolute force to be reckoned with. You are a one-man army. You are the most dangerous person on the face of the earth to the kingdom of darkness. Therefore, the enemy's going to put his sights on you. But if Yahuwah sets that hedge of protection around you like he did with Job, he can't touch you. That becomes reality. Like, you literally are immortal until Yahuwah says otherwise. They cannot kill you. They cannot destroy you. Like Yah can set a hedge of protection around you that no human or evil spirit can penetrate. He can give you all authority from heaven and earth to go and do like he said, like he commissioned those disciples to do that we read about earlier. These are those signs that should follow us, that the enemy should tremble at the name of Yahuwah and at his sons and daughters who walk in his authority, right? This New World Order will be a classic mystical socialism designed after Bacon's dream and the greedy interests of the powerful elite, akin to the empire of George Soros. Progressive globalists will sedate the mundane masses with the opium of progressive socialism, while the state-sponsored family dealers will prosper from within their oligarchic territories. Progressive socialism will merge with progressive capitalism. State-sponsored capitalism, akin to the contemporary Chinese oligarchy, is steadfastly being exported to the West as the new efficient model for capitalism and its future. Those infectious levers that they have used to take over our society are things that we are dealing with. Our fathers started this, our great grandfathers started these balls rolling in their kingdoms of compromise, right? And because of that, we are the ones who inherited the generational foolishness. We are the ones who are sitting here watching, wondering, well, is the God of the Bible really true? Like, is this really something that happened? Because we have all these other people, all these other religious scientists who rise up and tell us otherwise, right? We have all this Darwinian evolution. Like, we have so many burdens of liars that we have to deal with. Oh, in here, there's a great point. Check this out. Where your Darwinian evolution came from, you guys, is because Charles Darwin, was an occultist. Please understand something. The guy loved attending seances. They have the name of the seances, the leader of his seances that was in here. This is why his wisdom increases, so too does sorrow. Okay, here it is. Darwin was not the objective. This is great. This is in page 516 of this Genesis 6 conspiracy. Darwin was not the objective secular scholar he has been canonized to be. He was close friends with Max Mueller, who translated the Rig Vedas. Vedas is this more Eastern mysticism stuff. Darwin was profoundly influenced by mysticism, frequently attending seances with George Eliot. Evolution emanated out of Darwin's hidden bias and devotion to mysticism and Upanishad scripture, the Samraka. This is a material world prison philosophy of earthly atheism, a perennial philosophy as Armstrong presents it, where humans are perpetually cursed to be born and die in nature, but the spirit evolves to godhood throughout the eternal process. Thus, Darwin developed a derisive, degrading philosophy funded by the Royal Society to dismiss monotheism. Education's task is to destroy Christianity and to prepare the world to accept world government without violence. Educators are succeeding in directing the minds of the masses to believe in vain conceptions, fantastic theories, and progressive ideas manifested in all forms of literature and entertainment, which are, according to the Rex Deuce writers, the elders of Zion, the senseless, abominable, and filth, all to obscure the real truth of the true objectives. This is how they make this war. You see why I want to research silver bullets, you guys? You see why I want to go back down that road? It's just frustrating beyond all measure. And you're like, you just want the streets to run with their blood. At one point in your life, you're just like, I just want them all to die. I'm fighting with this microphone, you guys. Come labor with me for a second. Let's pick up the other sword. We're going to read about some good guy stuff, and then we have to weigh into the fray of that disgusting. You have to weigh into the doctrines of demons to understand why things are the way they are. But we got to go back to the scriptures. Always wash yourself with the water of the word. It's so good. All right. So King Asa, remember the timeline here. King Asa rose up, cast out all these pagan people, and he's like, you know what? You're going down, son. We're going to go tear down all the obelisks on the top of all of our Baptist churches. Yes, every sun pillar that's raised up like a Nimrod, or palace of Nimrod is coming down. You bring it down, bring it down, bring it down. Like, oh, praise Yah. Life dream of mine to tear down one of those things. Just climb on top of a building. Be like, you know what? No more. And just take this hatchet. You want to see my hatchet? I even have a hatchet ready for this moment. This is it. I want to tear down the idols. You know what I'm saying? Like, I long for the day when we get to see these temples just brought down to dust, you know? I can't wait for that moment. You know what I'm saying? But I've wanted to go smash down those things with this incredible Israelite axe head I found. Yeah, hallelujah. Nature Nate's a crazy cool series. You guys can play into that anytime you want. When you want a little light chuckle, go to Nature Nate. It's good for you. There's a video of me finding this one. Oh, praise be to Yah Almighty. Anyways, I have this piece of ironwood that I'm going to fix into its handle. And I want to smash down an obelisk with it, like crazy Gideon style. You know what I'm saying? Like Abraham smashed down all of his father's idols. You go, Abraham. Dadgummit. That's what my son's named after him. Smashing down idols. Stinking champions. Anyway, stone axe to just devastate and bring down all of the idols. It's going to be a great moment. It's going to happen. I'm confident of it. Because Yah is going to pour out his spirit like now in the latter days more than ever at any time of the earth. And people are going to rise up and cast off those vain idolaters and be like, no, get away from me. We're going to throw these things away from us like filthy rags and say, get away from us. That's what we're going to do. You know what I'm saying? Like I've smashed a lot of filthy, disgusting things that I had in my life. I had to get rid of them. Literally took them outside and smashed them with rocks and smashed them with hammers and be like, get out of my life. I don't want you anymore. It's a good thing to do. The problem is, unfortunately, it takes one generation to screw it all up again. And that's all it took. So Asa slept with his fathers, right? And you're like, oh, Asa died. He lived 41 years. And then you're like, and Nadab, the son of Jeroboam. Hold on. Here's after this. Okay. Enter into the scene. The worst of the worst here. Okay. We're going to talk about King Ahab and his unbelievably, horrifically evil wife, Jezebel. Dagum, Jezebel. I might read in the scriptures translation we're reading from today. That one. King Ahab rises up, takes over the throne. Okay. He marries this woman, Jezebel. She comes from the land of total paganism. Dadgummit. She is like the queen of the Illuminati. She is like the mother of, she's the mother of darkness. She's sitting on the throne with the dragon himself, and she's drinking the blood of infants. Like, not a joke, you guys. She is the worst of the worst. But she has a nice white house. She lives, her temple, if you're looking for it, is like the big church down the road. That's like exactly. She has this beautiful ivory house. People are like, wow, she's so beautiful. She puts on makeup and vanity, and she does her eyelashes. She puts on the mascara like the Watchers taught her to. You guys, if any of you are putting on mascara, that's literally where you got that tradition from. It's literally, it says one of the Watchers gives you the name of them. Fallen angel taught mankind to put antimony in the beautifying of their eyes. Come through. Just enlarge your eyes. It's like, because it says that women were not as strong as men physically, so they should use their seductive powers to take over them instead. Murder vanity. Eve inherited vanity from us all. It's the first thing the serpent gave to her. Vanity. Murder it, ladies. Yahweh made you beautiful. Don't let any other liar tell you otherwise. Not even Gillette. Go down the shaving road. I'm telling you, the world is crazy, run by dragons. All right, check this out. So Ahab takes over the throne. He's a monster. His wife is a total pagan. So what's he do? She's like, whatever you want, honey. She dominates and rules over him with this Jezebel spirit. She's a domineering, horrible woman. He can't get stuff to happen. And so she's like, I'll take care of it, honey. Just give me your signet ring. So there's like this field he wants to buy at one point. Just going to reference a quick story real quick. King Ahab wants to buy this field from this guy who's a righteous man. And he's like, hey, I just want to buy your field. It's like a beautiful vineyard. And it's right outside my window. I'd love to have it. And he's like, this is the inheritance of my father's. No. And he's all comes home. He's all bum and he's all he's pouting. He's his wife's like, what's wrong? He's like, he won't sell me his field. He won't give it to me. Jezebel's like, you leave it to me, honey. I'll take care of this for you. And that's what she does. She signs a letter in his name. She's all like, listen, we're going to go raise up some false witnesses. You guys are going to testify that he blasphemed against Yahweh. Then you're going to put him to death. So that's what they do. And they're like, she's like, here, honey, there's your field of blood. She's the Illuminati. You know what I'm saying? She's like, literally, she's like, she is the whore of Babylon. She's sitting on the throne in Rome. She's like, yay. You guys just think there's only one pope. She's like the gray pope in the middle. She's like, hee. Anyways, this is 1 Kings 18. I could get lost in it. So this is showdown. Elijah. We'll go back just a little bit because I could read this whole book. I did. If you want to listen to the entire book of 1 Kings, listen to it below. Click the link below. Anyways, we'll just go back a little bit because there's this great showdown. Chapter 17. I'm going to do it. It's so fun. And Eliyahu the Tishbite of the settlers of Gilead said to Ahab, as Yahweh Elohim of Yisrael lives, before whom I stand, there shall be... Oh, sorry, let's back up even further. I got to, because just context is everything. So Ahab and his wife, under her reign, start raising up all of those pagan places, okay? They start building Asherah poles under groves of trees predominantly, Okay. And a lot of times they would tie someone to the Asherah pole and light them on fire as a sacrifice. They call it a holocaust, a burnt offering. Okay. That was one of the ways they would like practice with Asherah poles when they would like pass someone through the fires. But a lot of it was like carving sacred engravings, and they would weave tapestries. I think we'll go back just a little bit. And Ahab, oh, this is so bad. In the 38th year of Asa, sovereign of Yehuda, Ahab, the son of Omri, became sovereign over Yisrael. And Ahab, the son of Omri, reigned over Yisrael and Shamaron 22 years. So contemporaneous to the time of Asa, when Asa is having all these great reforms in the house of Judah, it's over down towards Jerusalem, Benjamin, that kind of southern area of Israel's inheritance. The house of Israel is getting the worst kings that they got. And Ahab, the son of Omri, did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah, more than all those before him. And it came to be as though it had been a light matter for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, that he took his wife Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, the sovereign of the Sidonians. And he went and served Baal and bowed himself to it, and raised up a slaughter place for Baal in the house of Baal, which he had built in Shamaron. And Ahab made an Asherah, and Ahab did more to provoke Yahweh Elohim of Yisrael than all the sovereigns of Yisrael before him. In his days, Hael of Bethel built Jericho. He laid its foundation at the cost of Abiram, his firstborn, and at the cost of his youngest son, Segub. He set up its gates, according to the word of Yahuwah, which he had spoken through Yahshua, son of Nun. The whole story we were talking about earlier when they were tearing down the walls of Jericho, right? Joshua proclaimed a curse against whoever built it again. And he said, whoever builds the walls of Jericho again, it's going to cost him his firstborn son. And he said, whoever sets the gates of it, he's going to lose his secondborn son. Oh, is that right? Of his youngest son. Whoever sets the gates, his youngest son is going to die. Ahab is the guy who fulfills it. Ahab is literally under the influence of these immortals now, totally given over to this horrible, cursed mind. He is now rebuilding Jericho. He's reestablishing this house of horror, right? And he's willing, like we've talked about over and over again, these people literally are willing to sacrifice their children, right? But that's how committed they are to their cause. That's how committed they are to their cause. Don't ever forget that. That shouldn't just make us be like, that's horrible. It is horrible, but understand their level of discipline. Respect the enemy's discipline. Does that make sense? Respect their level of commitment, because we, a lot of times, are pitter-pattering around out here like, I'm a believer, I guess. Like, what zealousness they have for their beliefs, what absolute dedication they have. They're leveraging every single thing they have for their kingdom. They are leveraging everything they got. They are all in. You know what I'm saying? So that's the context for the story. The people of Israel, the house of Israel, are being led by their king and their queen to start to embrace the paganistic practices of worshiping Baal, who's the fertility god who causes it to rain, provides bountiful grass and lush pastures and animals to brace up, and Asherah, his consort, to be able to do likewise. Okay, understand that's the context of the time frame where Eliyahu, we're going to read as his name is transliterated here. We're going to read that's the setting for when Elisha the Tishbite shows up. And Eliyahu the Tishbite of the settlers of Gilead said to Ahab, as Yahweh Elohim of Israel lives, before whom I stand, there shall be no dew or rain these years except at my word. Dude, what an awesome moment. Gosh dang it. Don't you pray for that moment? I pray for opportunities to talk to these people. I really do, man. I really pray that Yahweh gives me doors. Pray that Yahweh give me doors to go and preach to these people and go talk to them. I want opportunities to go and speak with these people, every one of them. I long for the opportunity to go and sit with them because I understand there's still people there. There's still a child that was created in the image of Yah that's now been turned into the image of a beast. And I know what that feels like. I've been there. I have been literally somebody who carried out the mark of Cain. Like was marked by the beast at a very early age. I practiced horrible evil at a very early age when I was led and trained to do it. I was trained as a youth to walk in this level of iniquity. And you know what? I know the power of what happens through repentance. I have become intimately more aware of the ways of Yah than I was of the ways of the wicked. And you know what? It's been life for me. Yah's given me life in the place of death. And so I know what these people feel like at the end of the day. I know what it feels like to have the dread of the night. I know what it feels like to drink yourself into oblivion, to drug yourself into oblivion, to just use anything you could to alter your state of consciousness because of the horrible feeling of knowing who you are and what you are. I have compassion in my heart for them, and I long for them to be set free, and I long for them to turn and use their tools and resources to set captives free. That's it, man. Pray for me to have opportunities to do that. And the word of Yahuwah came to him, saying, Go away from here and turn eastward and hide by the Wadi Karith, which flows into the Yarden. And it shall be that you drink from the stream, so I shall command the ravens to feed you there. So now Yahuwah, this is a showdown. As always, behind the Immortals, Yahuwah is judging Baal behind the scenes, and he's judging Asherah behind the scenes because he stops it from raining. Well, now you got all these pagans running around, all these like Israelites running around, sacrificing children and doing all this pagan practices, lighting incense and offerings to Baal, the god of rain, and it's not raining. Showdown time. That's pretty funny. It's kind of funny, right? Think about it. That's pretty ball. That's pretty saucy. That's pretty saucy. And the ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning, and bread and meat in the evening. And he drank from the stream. And it came to be after a while that the stream dried up, because there had been no rain in the land. Then the word of Yahuwah came to him, saying, Rise up, go to Zarephath, which belongs to Zidon, and dwell there. And see, I have commanded a widow there to sustain you. And he rose up and went to Zarephath, and came to the gate of the city, and saw a widow gathering sticks. And he called and said to her, Please bring me a little water in a vessel to drink. And as she was going to get it, he called and said to her, Please bring me a piece of bread in your hand. And she said, As Yahweh Elohim lives, I do not have bread, only a handful of flour in a bin and a little oil in a jar. And see, I am gathering a couple of sticks, and shall go in and prepare it for myself and my son, and we shall eat it and die. And Eliyahu said to her, Do not fear. Go and do what you have said, but make me a small cake from it first, and bring it to me. And afterward make some for yourself and your son. For thus said Yahweh Elohim of Israel, the bin of flour shall not be used up, nor the jar of oil run dry, until the day Yahweh sends rain on the earth. So she went and did according to the word of Eliyahu, and she and he and her household ate for many days. The bin of flour was not used up, nor did the jar of oil run dry, according to the word of Yahuwah, which he spoke by Eliyahu. And after these events, it came. Don't forget that, man. That's a reality. This actually took place. This is a reliable historical account of what took place in a course of famine, in a course of drought, when Yahweh was judging the immortals behind the scenes, when Yahweh was dealing out justice against these gods. Yahweh was sustaining Elijah like powerfully, profoundly. He was providing sustenance and abundance for them in a time of scarcity. How beautiful. And after these events, it came to be that the son of the woman who owned the house became very sick, and his sickness was severe until there was no breath left in him. And she said to Eliyahu, What have I done with you, O man of Elohim? Have you come to me to bring my crookedness to be remembered and to kill my son? And he said to her, Give me your son. So he took him from her arms and took him to the upper room where he was dwelling and laid him on his own bed and cried out to Yahweh and said, O Yahuwah, my Elohim, have you also brought evil on the widow with whom I am sojourning to kill her son? And he stretched himself out on the child 3 times and cried out to Yahuwah and said, O Yahuwah, my Elohim, I pray let the life of this child come back to him. And Yahuwah heard the voice of Eliyahu, and the life of the child came back to him, and he lived. And Eliyahu took the child and brought him down from the upper room into the house and gave him to his mother. And Eliyahu said, See, your son lives. And the woman said to Eliyahu, Now by this I know that you are a man of Elohim, and that the word of Yahuwah in your mouth is truth. Hallelujah, man. These are the miracles that are supposed to accompany us, you guys. Laying hands on the dead and seeing them come back to life. We're supposed to pray that way. Have you ever been so bold as to pray that way? You know, it's a bold prayer. Like to rebuke death off of somebody and pray that Yahweh raises him back to life. It happens. Like there's miracles have been happening, you guys, for a long time. These are like real evidences that we serve not the God of the dead, but the God of the living, Don't ever forget that. Never lose sight of that. These are some serious, profound signs. This account of this woman, years later, there's another famine that comes upon the land, and a prophet warns this woman. He's like, hey, there's going to be a famine and scarcity in this land. And he tells her specifically to go sojourn, to go live somewhere else during the time of the famine, and after it to come back home. Well, when she comes back home, other people have taken over her land, and she goes before the king and she's appealing to him, like, please give me my land back. Please. Like, I went and sojourned. She's trying to explain the situation to him, and she's not getting justice. She's not getting justice. Okay. These are widows, you guys. Never forget this. In their society, they had very little means with which to provide for themselves. Her son, if her son had died here, she would be really screwed. She would be really screwed. Never lose sight of that. It's the little that she had, she shared it with them. That's that story of the widow's mite. This is something else someone sent to me. You know who you are. I appreciate your gift so much. I have only in my entire life received 2 coins, like biblical coins, as gifts from people. Both of them have been the widow's mite. There's a serious story there. The widow's mite, you guys, this is from Luke 21. I'll just read this real quick because this, anytime widow pops into your head, this is where your little rabbit trail of your brain should go everywhere, right? Every time you read about this. So you can see how small this is. It's going to be really, let's see if you can see it. It's super tiny. It's like the smallest denomination of a coin. It's often mistranslated at like the actual monetary value of this. This realistically translates to probably about $1, maybe $2. It wasn't like a fraction of a penny. Like it tells us the denomination amount of what it was worth in Luke 21. Let's just read it real quick. This is a great story. This is someone leveraging all they got for the kingdom. And looking up, this is Yeshua in Luke 21. And looking up, he saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury. And he saw a certain poor widow putting in 2 mites, 2 of these coins, like these actual coins. And he said, truly I say to you that this poor widow has put in more than all. For all these out of their excess have put in offerings for Elohim. But she out of her poverty has put in all that she had to live on, right? This is the beauty of someone who had a generous offering to Yahuwah. And here we see someone with so little, trusting Yahuwah so much that they gave to him all that they had to live on. That's literally what this widow just did with Elijah. Understand, she literally gave her last meal. She's going to eat with her son, and then she plans to die. Think about how horrible this moment is. Some of you have suffered scarcity of food. Many of you who are watching this have never gone without a meal against your will. Many of you have never known what it's like to be so hungry and to not have any way to get food, that you weren't allowed food. Some of you have, and you understand that feeling very well. It's deep inside you, right? The last chapter of my book is called The Hunger because of how much that to this day affected my life. My daughter Naomi is old enough now to really get it, why I am the way I am around mealtimes in particular. Like, it's hard for me to see food left on a plate. Like it's really hard for me to see that and think of food going to a waste because I experienced such a level of scarcity, of starvation. Like hunger was a weapon that was used against me very maliciously when I was raised by this serpent cult. And so it created in me a willingness to do whatever it takes to find food, right? So I ate out of trash a lot. And that's where I went to find food. And I would sometimes, you get punished for that. So you got to figure out how to get caught, how to not get, it makes you a thief, ultimately, was what you learn. You learn how to steal to survive. And that's a really rough way of teaching morality and removing morality from a child is to make them learn how to go steal in order to get what they want. But this is a way that the enemy makes people learn how to be willing to do whatever it takes to get what you need or to advance the cause or advance the family. That hunger still to this day, like on my plate, it's so easy for me. I want to give the food away, like to my family, the best food. I want my children to have the best quality food. That's why we prioritize so much of like trying to eat the best possible food we can, because I want my children to have the best potential setup, the best foundation for living an abundant life. I want them to do that. So that's why we prioritize like our money that we have goes into food, a lot of it, because that's where we go. Like supplementation and food, those are like the main places where we spend our money because it's so important to me. I want my children to thrive. I want them to thrive. But my daughter Naomi, she's smiling at me now. She's figured out that dad is always giving his food away to the children. Like I give the better portions to them every chance I get, especially like they're growing and hungry like crazy, and I'll give more to them. I'll eat a lot less so that they can have more, but she's figuring it out. She's like, Dad, don't do that. You're so generous. Don't you do that? She's like, don't do it, Dad. She's figured out what I'm doing, and she knows I'm trying to be generous, and at least she sees it as that. What she doesn't understand maybe is she doesn't understand all the stuff behind it, if that makes sense. Like I'd rather, I know it's okay to miss a meal, but I don't want them to have to unnecessarily, That's my desire. But that mother had to sit there and wrestle with that, watching her pantry get smaller. She had to wrestle with what it felt like as like a single mother, not knowing where tomorrow's bread was going to come from. She watched her supplies dwindle and dwindle and dwindle. This isn't something that took place overnight. This was something that progressively ate her away to where she was on the very day that she was like, that's it. Today's the last day I'm going to eat. Today's the last day I'm going to have food for my son. And she went out into a field and is picking up sticks to light a fire to make some bread for her son. And that's when the man of Elohim shows up into her life and then challenges her to give that away. What an unbelievable moment. What an unbelievable testing. But you know what? This tends to be when I see how the Father tests us the most. In our crucial, most broken, vulnerable moments, when we are most depleted, most exhausted, most worn out. That's when he comes and asks of us something impossible. And you know what? This is when the spiritual fruits come out. What we've truly sown into our lives, if we've been sowing the scriptures into our life, if we've been believing on him, whether that belief, that faith truly will come to fruition in that moment. And you know what hers did? And she got to see a miracle every day. Every day. There was this family that we lived with. Like we got taken in by a lot of people over the years. Like when we were sojourning, we were serious sojourners for 4.5 years. We sojourned all over this country. We're still basically sojourners. We still just different ways, not in an RV anymore. But we had some family that took us in North Carolina, and they literally, I've talked about them quite a few times before, but they fed our family. At the time, we were living in a Dick's parking lot in outside of Asheville. I think it was called Hendersonville, North Carolina, and we were living in Dick's parking lot. We had nowhere to go, and we were like having no idea where things were going to come from. This is right as everything was getting shut down completely. There was no campgrounds open, no state parks open. Like we were looking to wolf on farms. We used to just go and trade food for places to stay, and we would labor on people's farms. We were like migrant sojourners, and this family ended up taking us in, and they agreed as part of like our wages they would feed us dinner every night, and that's what she did. Marie, man, champion, dude, and Will. What great faith they had, but they had grown in this place of faith because they were like a single income family, special needs son, 4 children, and they lived in like a 1-bedroom house. They'd kind of semi converted into 2 bedrooms, and they had a 1-acre property, and they were raising goats. They had chickens, and they had bamboo on it, which is amazing. My favorite thing in the world. I want to live so badly in places that have bamboo. Bamboo. It's got to have bamboo, man. This is like a sign of the promised land. It's like a mark of the Creator's hand of love in the places that it has bamboo. It's like praise be to Yah, a grass I can eat. It's delicious and sturdy and wonderfully beautiful, and it's like an evergreen. I love it. Anyways, this family had this absolute willingness to provide the needs of others. And so they had a school bus that was converted a little bit into a house that a homeless man was living in. They had another little like travel trailer that I think they got for free or maybe super cheap. And that they had another person that was living on. And you know what? They just met the needs of people like crazy. They would go down and do street ministry. Will would go down and do street ministry a lot in Asheville and was witnessing to people all the time. They were like one of those houses that just had people coming and going all the time, and they were just always trying to advance the kingdom of Yah, man. They had a love for him and a love for his people. And they used to do ministry though, but a lot of that got started. And I think even where they met, was doing at rainbow gatherings. And if you're not familiar with that, some of you like this, some of this is going to be some super new age stuff. But they would go there as like missionaries. Check this out. They had this thing called the Jesus Kitchen where they would serve food to people that were at these rainbow gatherings. And there's a lot of, people that are trying to live a more natural lifestyle all the way to the scale of like full on deep new age, like everywhere in between. Lots of different varieties of that stuff. But they would gather in the forest and they would just hang out, do all kinds of crazy stuff, fun stuff, wild stuff, bad stuff, good stuff, all in between. Anyways, I'm not going to totally throw the rocks at those people because the truth is I would rather go evangelize to a group of them than to a bunch of Christians every day of the week. And yes, I have to evangelize to Christians all the time because there's a lot of paganisms in Christianity and that sucks. And we got to talk about that. And they tend to be prideful and really pissed about it. It's really awkward. Anyways, I get more persecution from that side of the fence more often than anywhere else. But people that are all into rocks and gemstones, they're like, you like rocks? They're like, dude, you come down here, it's a barter kingdom. You'd be like rich as a king. And I was like, really? They're like, oh yeah, bring all your gemstones, man. You're gonna be like, I was like, it's a different kingdom. I belong there. Anyways, they were there at this, they would do this Jesus kitchen. Okay. And they would always try to have food available for people so they could have a good quality meal and they would have an opportunity, to seek to open the door for them to talk about the Messiah, right? This was their goal. They were fishing for the souls of men. They were hunting the souls of men. But while they were there, Marie would talk about these stories of when they were trying to serve all this food for people. And they had a rule that while they were serving people in the line, whoever's on the line serving, okay, you're not allowed to look in the pot. You're not allowed to look in the pot of whatever you're serving. So it's a soup, right? Don't look in it. And so what they do is they would have the ladle in their hand, and somebody would come by and they would have the lid on top, and they would take out a scoop and they would lift the lid up just enough to get the scoop out. They'd pour it in and then put it away. They would never look, because oftentimes there was not enough. Like if you sat there and you're like, we got 700 people to feed and we have 3 pots of soup. Oh, and that doubt, right? They were always on guard against that doubt. They were always careful to try to resist that fear that they were going to run out. And they stood on these scriptures. They would lean upon these testimonies before from the word, being like, you know what? Yeshua multiplied the bread and the fishes. He can multiply it then. He can multiply it today. And they literally, she would sit there and tell us stories and stories and stories of times when they never ran out. And she's like, there was no way we had enough constantly. And yet there would be enough to sustain everyone. And she said the last person would go through line and they literally would go to scrape it and there'd be nothing left. It was amazing. Like I love talking to missionaries, you guys. There's missionaries who go off to other countries and stuff. You guys, there's a lot of missionaries here in the States. I thought my wife and I were going to be missionaries. We were going to go to Afghanistan. I thought we were going to go do abroad missions work. I thought we were going to do medical missions work. I thought that's what we were going to do. We thought we were going to have a mobile soup kitchen at one point. We had a big passion to do soup kitchen stuff. We started doing cooking for the homeless in Boulder, at the Boulder homeless shelter in northern Boulder. That's what we thought we were going to do. We thought like we were going to have a tour bus and travel around and have like a bread kitchen and soup kitchen and that kind of stuff, and travel around and witness to the nations that way. And we thought we were going to have a mobile soup kitchen. That was something we thought we were going to do with ministry. And yes, changed our life a little bit. But these are like where so many of those passions came from. It's like hearing these testimonies and hearing these stories of people that were on the streets, people that were actually out advancing the kingdom kind of one-on-one. You know what I'm saying? Like frontliners. Like I grew up on those stories and I grew up on those testimonies, and it's like it weaponized my faith. It galvanized my resolve. Like it tempered my edge so that I could endure in a lot of the monotony of normal life, because I'm an extremist. I'm a total zealot. I'm a freak show level psychopath when it comes to wanting to live an intense life. I'm bored if I don't. I'm like a caged animal. I'm losing my mind if I'm sedentary, if that makes sense. But when I seek to get in the fight, I long for the fight. I love the fight. I do. And like Chelsea and I have had a lot of talks about this, because there's levels of that don't need to be. I don't need to fight certain ways I used to fight anymore, but that fight is still in me. And she doesn't have that default, and I'm like talking about the circumstances, what's taking place in the world or what's going on over here. I'm like, don't you just want to go on the battlefield? Don't you just want to go fight and like take up a sword and cut the heads off these people and just like wage your war? Don't you just want to do that? She's like, no, honey, I don't think like that. I'm like, dang it, but she's good for me because she helps me. She helps me be a little more tempered, right? A little more like, there's better tools, This has been my weapon I've been fighting with by choice for a long time now. It's very effective. It's very good. But like that fight is still in me. Like I grew up in pits fighting other people. Like literally. I grew up at a very young age fighting for my life. From the earliest moments, I have been fighting to live. I was fighting to die for a long time too. But then there came a point in time where I finally started to fight to live. Now that's where I'm at. I fight to live. I fight to live because I have this family, because I have this relationship with these people, because I've also seen the righteous out there too. I've recognized it's not all bad people out there. As pervasive as these Freemasonic societies are, as all of these Jesuits are, as all of these radical agents of evil are, there's many marvelous people. There's incredible gemstones, incredible pearls all over the earth. And you know what? That's why we pray for more laborers to come onto the field. That's why we pray for greater opportunities to seek the kingdom first and to seek to set captives free. And you know what? We got to see those miracles take place. And I want you guys to experience what it's like to have those miracles take place in your life. So if you're suffering with those experiences, if you're feeling those fears, don't give into those fears. Whether you have much or whether you have little, like learn to be content in all circumstances. This was literally why Paul is quoted as saying, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's what he was talking about. Whether poverty or riches, whether rags or riches, he understood there was the contentment was the goal. Contentment was the supernatural gift that the Father could give upon us to make us overcome our circumstances, no matter what they look like. It's a lot of groundwork to get to the showdown. You know what I'm saying? It's a longer one. Some of you guys like these. Hang in there. For all you long over the road truckers, all you people that are driving right now and just listening, I just want to say I love you. I love you so much. Every one of you that's listening right now. I appreciate you guys. I really do. I sincerely appreciate you guys and the support and the encouragement, the prayers, the intercession that you make for me and my family, for the ministry that we do. I appreciate you all for what you're doing too. And I pray that you have doors of opportunity open in your life to advance the kingdom of righteousness, that you would get to see incredible miracles take place in front of your eyes, that you would be prayer warriors out there, terrain mapping the nation. Come on, every mile you drive, pray it up. It says he wants men to lift up their hands when they go out in public. Lifting your hands up in praise and prayer. Do it. It's good for you. It's good for you. Stand out in public and raise your hands up and cry out. Ask the Father to forgive the sins committed in that land. Pardon the transgressions. Wash away the iniquities. Come on. We need those prayer warriors taking back the kingdom. Check this out. So that's the context of what goes down here. Okay. For 3.5 years, by the way, it's not rained. It's a big time. Lots of stuff. Everywhere else is perishing. But you know what? Elijah's flourishing. He's doing great. But now it's time for showdown. Chapter 18. And after many days, it came to be that the word of Yahuwah came to Eliyahu in the 3rd year, saying, Go, present yourself to Ahab, and I give rain upon the earth. Showdown time, baby. Thereupon Eliyahu went to present himself to Ahab, and the scarcity of food in Shamaron was severe. That's Samaria. And Ahab had called Obadiah, who was over his house. Now Obadiah feared Yahuwah exceedingly. Hallelujah. We got a Gibborim. We got a mighty man of valor planted right next to the king of terror. Yah's got his secret agents right there planted in the heart of darkness. I love that. Desire to be in those positions, you guys. It's so good. Fears Yahuwah, and he's doing good stuff secretly. Behind the scenes, he's using his resources to save lives and to empower the sons of righteousness to be bold and effective in their ministries. And it came to be when Jezebel cut down the prophets of Yahuwah. Pause for a second. Jezebel is murdering the prophets of Yahuwah. So she's got the FBI roped in through all the Jesuits. She's like the Catholic Intelligence Agency is firing off all their like seek and kill. They're sending out the Special Activities Division, right? That's like the special forces of the CIA. They're sending them out with their special kill teams. That's the bad stuff, dudes. They're coming in to murder all the righteous people. This is reality, like actually taking place. This wasn't some kind of like just thing he said casually here. She was sending out agents, assassins to murder the prophets of Yah. Think about this for a second. This is the prophets of Yah that were desiring to see those miracles take place, those prophecies come to pass. She is sending out agents to murder them. Obadiah, who's sitting right there in the king's house, right there next to her, behind the scenes is putting those people into witness protection programs. This is so good. This is why we talked about the Refuge Railroad. Like we wanted to, part of that desire was to have secret underground railroad where we could have stashed little goods and supplies for when you need to, when the persecution comes and you need to literally hide the righteous people away. You know what I'm saying? Like you need to sequester some of these people. Some of us sometimes are going to send special kill teams after some of us, and you need like safe houses, right? You need safe houses. And so that's why we're all about like, if you can have these little tiny houses kind of off the grid, tucked away places, you can have a mill there, you can store grain there, olive oil, salt, like basic linens, sheets, clothing, right? Have some water, well water, whatever it is. Have that stashed away at different places all over the country, right? All over the world. That's just the basic supplies that you need to get through this stuff. We just read it. Like we literally just read how they were sustained. They're like, this is where like we build our framework for like safe houses and stuff like that. This is where my mind goes. I'm like, that's what we need. Scatter those all over the country. You know, it's an effective thing. In order for that to happen, we got to pray for Yah to give us just absolutely massive resources so that we can start fighting after this stuff and building the network and infrastructure in place at the right time. But you know what? Yahuwah can do it at any time of his choosing. He's more than capable. Praise be to Yah. Anyways, check this out. Obadiah, righteous warrior sneaking in there, had taken 100 prophets and hidden them 50 to a cave and fed them with bread and water. Go get them, super Melanites. And Ahab had said to Obadiah, go into the land, to all the springs of water, into all the wadis. It could be that if we find grass to keep the horses and mules alive and do not have any livestock cut off. And they divided the land between them to pass over it. Ahab went one way by himself, and Obadiah went another way by himself. and Obed-Yahu was on his way. Then see, Eliyahu met him, and he recognized him and fell on his face and said, Is that you, my master, Eliyahu? And he answered, It is I. Go say to your master, Eliyahu is here. And he said, What have I sinned, that you are giving me, your servant, into the hand of Ahab to kill me? As Yahweh, your Elohim, lives, there is no nation or reign where my master has not sent to look for you. And when they said, He is not here, he made the reign or nation swear that they could not find you. And now you say, Go say to your master, Eliyahu is here. And it shall be as soon as I'm gone from you that the spirit of Yahweh takes you away to a place I do not know. And I shall come to report to Ahab when he does not find you, and he shall kill me. But I, your servant, have feared Yahweh from my youth. Was it not reported to my master what I did when Jezebel killed the prophets of Yahuwah? How I hid 100 men of the prophets of Yahuwah, 50 to a cave, and fed them with bread and water. And now you say, Go to your master. Eliyahu is here, then he shall kill me. And Eliyahu said, As Yahuwah of hosts lives, before whom I stand, I shall indeed show myself to him today. Understand, Obed-Yahu, his name literally means obedient servant of Yah. Like he had been obedient and fearful to Yah since the days of his youth. That's awesome. That's my man. If you're a young man listening to this, my prayers for you is that that would be you, that you would fear Yahuwah from your youth, that you would skip all of the distractions, all of the strongholds, and all of the horrible pitfalls of the enemy that so many of us men have had. We got a lot of baggage, a lot of us. By the time we started accepting our call into frontline ministry, a lot of us still had a bunch of chains around our neck that we had to deal with. If you would not pick those up, if you would not pick up the ways of the world at all, but you would be freed from them from your youth, my gosh, what you could accomplish. You can do so many miracles. You can raise up armies for the kingdom of Yahuwah. You can be at the front of Yahuwah's chosen warriors on this earth if you will love him and serve him and cling to him. Man, you could be a serious warrior. You read about Samson and David and Gideon and John the Baptist and Paul. Like he has so many incredible testimonies waiting for you, miracles waiting for you if you'll follow him and serve him. Dedicate your life to him from a young age. Watch and see what he'll do for you. Here is Obed-Yahu, decades later into his life, finally getting to be served, literally be hand-plucked and placed into the kingdom to where he's able to save the lives of these prophets of Yahuwah and to be able to be a close friend of Elisha, right? That last thing I wanted to say about that widow, when that widow was pleading for her land to get restored to her with the king, Elijah, who is the servant of Elijah, he follows after Elijah, right? After Elijah is taken up into heaven, Elisha is the one who takes up his mantle and goes on his anointing. Well, later on in life, when that woman was pleading before the king and sharing with him what had taken place in her life, Elisha stands before him and is like, that woman over there, she's the one, the widow. She was the widow who can testify to the miracles of what Elisha did. Elijah had literally been in the presence of the king, and the king was like, Tell me the miracles of Eliyahu. I want to hear about that guy. He sounds great. He's starting to tell him the miracles about him, and he's like, Hey, that woman right there who's asking for her house back, that's the widow. That's the widow. That boy right there, that's the son he raised from the dead. She can come and tell you. Like 2 or 3 witnesses confirm the testimony. Salty. The woman then gets favor from the king and gets her land back. It's awesome. Anyway, it's just a cool testimony. Like from the scriptures, you just get these beautiful provisions of Yah just scattered all over the place. It's so fun. Anyways, rabbit trail over. And it came to be when Ahab saw Eliyahu that Ahab said to him, Is that you, O disturber of Yisrael? That word disturber is the one who hinders and prevents and stirs up, the one who muddles and confuses. And he answered and said, I have not disturbed Yisrael, but you and your father's house, in that you have forsaken the commands of Yahuwah, and you have followed the Baals. And now send and gather all Yisrael to me on Mount Carmel, the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah, who eat at Jezebel's table. Oh, showdown time. This is unreal. King Ahab is so ticked when he sees Elisha. Understand, the last time he saw this guy, he pronounced that there was going to be a drought. Boom, drought. Still been there, causing all kinds of grief. And so he says, Elisha, you're the one who troubles. And that word there is ayin, kaf, resh. Akruf. Literally, check this out. And guys, that I recommend this all the time. We're gonna get some meatiness from this one. This is the Ernest Klein Etymological Dictionary of the Hebrew Language for English readers. Ernest Klein. I highly recommend it. On page 471, defines it as the hinder, to prevent, to stir, to disturb, to modify, and to confuse. It's muddying up the waters. He's accusing Elijah of doing that. And Elijah's like, excuse me. If anyone has muddied the water and sown confusion into the house of Israel, it's you, O king. This is what he's done. He has sown confusion into the people. He, as the king, has led the people into idolatry, led the people into paganism. Like, that's what he did. That's his legacy. That's what he has done. That's the reality of what this kingdom of that who we're battling with is. They have taken the pure spring water that's been coming forth from the scriptures for a long time, and they've started pouring this muddy, disgusting glyphosate. They're just pouring in all of this horrible toxin into every little drink. And they're like, you drink that. You have some delicious nitrogen enriched ammonia saturated water. Why don't you drink that, you guys? It's literally like the waters that flow down into our rivers and creeks are so toxic now. It's like we can't even drink from them. But when people first came to the Americas, they talked about being able to go into our lakes and our rivers. They said they could see 100 feet down, 200 feet of clarity of water. The water was so pure. And you look at it now, like the rivers that we have feeding into it, like the Mississippi, when it empties out into the Gulf, it creates a zone of sterility. Literally, it's like death for hundreds of miles, square miles in there, just death flowing into it. This is why, like the Gulf of Texas, the Gulf of Mexico, along the Gulf Coast of Louisiana and Texas, it's like sterilized compared to what the fruitfulness and the abundance of life that used to be there. It's unbelievable how toxic it's become. That's what happens when we, our leaders, embrace the doctrines of demons and we go after the Baals and the Asherah and we promote them. We promote these secret societies, these oath keeping members. We give them the promotion and bring them into our cabinets, like our presidents here. They bring them into their cabinets. Like George Bush, when he got elected, he's like, he brings 11 members of the Skull and Bones, other members of the Skull and Bones Society, the Skull and Bones Club, and he puts them on his cabinet of advisors, right? This is him taking the prophets of Baal, these other people that have bowed the knees and have drank from the skull. Like he puts them into power with himself, right? This is why, like John Kerry, who's running for the same position against him at the same time, another member of the Skull and Bones. They come from Yale, right? Roman Catholic institution, deep Jesuit foundations, like the heart of the Jesuit order, right? They literally inaugurate 15 members into the secret society every year. So it's a very short membership list, right? But even at the same time frame, George Bush and John Kerry running have the same disgusting patronage in their background. Thank you, Jubilee. They have this same background going on at the time, and they're running against each other. It just shows you guys that these secret society members, they are literally orchestrating the world in so many ways, you know? Oh, and they're the ones who come in and they muddy the waters. They sow confusion into the land. They trouble the land. It literally says when people give their daughters over to whoredom, that the land becomes cursed for it. So like we wonder why we're experiencing so many calamities in our weather patterns, in our earth, in our soil. It's because we've given our daughters over to whoredom. Like people that do that, literally, it says the earth responds. The earth itself becomes cursed. So like the land becomes cursed when our daughters are given over to whoredom. And so many of us have sold our daughters away into whoredom. They did not guard their daughters. They sent them away to go become servants of the system of Babylon, to be another brick in the Babylonian kingdom. And off they go. And they get corrupted by the world and get taken captive because they do. They should still be in their father's house. They should be in their father's house under his provision, under his protection, until such a time as they're able to have a husband. That's how a great protection happens for a woman. It's one of the greatest blessings a father can give to his daughter, is to watch over her and protect her and shield her from the wiles and the schemes of the ways of the world, rather than the idea, this horrible dogma that's been entrenched to women, that they got to go become their own goddess, this libertarian ideology. That's why women would shave their head as a mark of freedom from men. It was a mark that comes from the oracles of Delphi in Corinth, right? Paul's writing his letter in 1st and 2nd Corinthians. He's writing to the people who are surrounded by those cult prostitutes from the oracles of Delphi. They would say they're virgins by their shaved heads, right? That didn't mean they were sexually virgins. That's where that practice came from. That's why he was like, cover your heads, ladies, as you come into the house until your hair grows long, right? That's why he's telling them to do that, because these oracles at Delphi that were becoming converts, that were leaving it, these former prophetess, right? These priests of that other pagan ideology, they had a different way of doing it. The men often grew their hair out and cross-dressed. They were like transgendered. That was a way that they literally, the male cult prostitutes, when you read about in the scriptures, that's how many of them were acting. That's why Paul is directly engaging with those scenarios when he's talking about that in the town of Corinth, because these were signs that these people had. And today, if you watch the entertainment industry, that's what they've moved women to become like, to become these goddesses, right? That they can free themselves from the shackles of men, to shave their hair short as a sign of freedom from that, the tyrannical reign of men. It's a total paganistic cult ideology. And this is how before you could identify, oh, there's a prophet, there's one of the prophets of Asherah. That's how you could see them. You could physically identify them. So today, when I look around in our society, this is how I terrain map what immortals are over a given territory, or what gods or demonic strongholds are in somebody, by literally identifying the fruits of their life will show me which gods they're under the influence of. That's how you can terrain map, and how you can start to work with targeted prayers to try to bring deliverance in people's lives. Something to consider there. That's some of those showdowns. Oh, we're going to have to get into it. This is great. We'll just go for it. We're going to have a nice long one here for you guys. Enjoy it. All right. And Ahab then sent for all the children of Israel and gathered the prophets on Mount Carmel. And Eliyahu came to all the people and said, how long would you keep hopping between two opinions? If Yahweh is Elohim, follow him. And if Baal, follow him. But the people answered him not a word. So now the whole nation of Israel is literally so undecided that they won't even pick between Yahweh being the mighty one of mighty ones, or Baal being the mighty ones of mighty ones. And that word there, hopping back and forth, it literally means to become lame, to pass over. It's literally Pesach, to pass over, vacillate, to go back and forth between two opinions. That's literally, they're passing over between deliberately committing their lives to the ways of the world and the ways of the kingdom of Yah. This is lukewarm Christianity. You betcha. This is it. This is like mixture of paganism, mixture of like sanctification. This is the brutality of what we like live with. A watered down, muddied doctrine to where there's not holiness. There's so many people that have tried to take this book apart and say, yeah, it doesn't really mean that. I know it says that, but that's not what he meant. All that kind of stuff. They've watered this down and they've muddied the waters, and it's made so many people who are raised in a Christian home vacillate between the two choices. They're like, kind of go back and forth between the world and the other one. They're kind of agnostic. They're kind of believers. They kind of believe in God. They believe in the Bible. They kind of believe in some of this other mystic. That's that muddying of the waters. That's what happens when the prophets of Baal and the prophets of Asherah, that's what happens when these other gods, these new age religions come in and sow in their doctrines of demons. The people begin to waver between the two worlds. And this is Elijah is like, no more. And Eliyahu said to the people, I alone am left a prophet of Yahuwah, but the prophets of Baal are 450 men. Now let them give us 2 bowls, and let them choose 1 bowl for themselves, and cut it in pieces, and lay it on the wood, but set no fire. And I prepare the other bowl, and shall lay it on the wood, but set no fire. And you shall call on the name of your mighty one, and I call on the name of Yahuwah, and the Elohim who answers by fire. He is Elohim. So all the people answered and said, the word is good. And Eliyahu said of the prophets of Baal, choose 1 bowl for yourselves and prepare it first, for you are many, and call on the name of your mighty one, but set no fire. So they took the bowl which was given them and prepared it, and called on the name of Baal from morning until evening, from morning even until noon, saying, O Baal, answer us. But there was no voice, and no one answered. And they leaped about the slaughter place which they had made. And it came to be at noon that Eliyahu taunted them and said, cry aloud, for he is a mighty one. He's meditating, or he is busy, or he's on a journey, or could be that he's asleep or has to be awakened. There's other translations that say he could be relieving himself. He could be taking a piss. And they cried aloud and cut themselves. There's the spilling of the blood. Talk about this all the time. According to their ruling. Okay, that's according to their like doctrines. They cut themselves. This is called like self-flagellation. This is like one of the spiritual practices of the Jesuits is self-mutilation, like literally destroying yourself bodily, like marking your flesh, maiming your own flesh, like burning yourself, cutting yourself. These are ways of calling upon the mighty ones through the sacrifice of your own blood. But there was no voice and no one answered. Oh, and it came to be when midday was past that they prophesied until the time of the bringing of the evening offering. But there was no voice and no one answered and no one paying attention. Then Eliyahu said to all the people, "Come closer to me." And all the people came closer to him. And he repaired the slaughter place of Yahuwah that was broken down. And Eliyahu took 12 stones according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, to whom the word of Yahuwah had come, saying, Yisrael is your name. And with the stones he built a slaughter place in the name of Yahuwah. And he made a trench around the slaughter place, large enough to hold 2 seahs of seed. And he arranged the wood and cut the bowl in pieces and laid it on the wood and said, Fill 4 jars with water and pour it on the ascending offering and on the wood. Then he said, Do it a second time. And they did it a second time. And he said, Do it a third time. And they did it a third time. And the water flowed around the slaughter place. And he filled the trench with water too. And it came to be at the time of the bringing of the evening offering that Eliyahu the prophet came near and said, Yahuwah Elohim of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yisrael, let it be known today, you are Elohim in Yisrael, and I, your servant, have done all these matters by your word. Answer me, O Yahuwah, answer me, and let this people know that you are Yahuwah Elohim, and you shall turn their hearts back to you again. Then the fire of Yahuwah fell and consumed the ascending offering, and the wood and the stones and the dust, and it licked up the water that was in the trench. And all the people saw and fell on their faces and said, Yahuwah, he is Elohim. Yahuwah, he is Elohim. And Eliyahu said to them, Seize the prophets of Baal. Do not let one of them escape. So they seized them, and Eliyahu brought them down to the Wadi Kishon and slew them there. And Eliyahu said to Ahab, Go up, eat and drink, because the sound of the noise of rain. Oh, what a moment. What an incredible moment. Like, we got to cry out that Yahweh would once again answer us by fire, that he would answer us by fire and deliver all of this, the infrastructure of the kingdom of the beast, to flames, that he would dismantle their networks and their trafficking mechanisms, that he'd destroy the transportation methods, confuse their communications, that he would throw the enemy camp into confusion, and that he would once again bring fire down upon this wicked house of immorality, of corruption and compromise, that he would judge these mighty ones behind the scenes, that he would deliver us from their unbelievable evil, and that the people would once again know that Yahuwah is Elohim. That is my prayer, man. I hope you guys start praying prayers like Elisha here. Pray that Yah would turn the hearts of the people back to him again, that he would show signs and wonders and do miracles like he did in the days of old, that he would call upon him and that he would answer us like this. Oh. And Ahab went up to eat and to drink, and Eliyahu went to the top of Mount Carmel, and he bowed down on the ground and put his face between his knees and said to his servant, Go up, please, look closely towards the sea. So he went up and looked closely and said, Not a speck. And 7 times he said, Go again. And it came to be the 7th time, there's another Shabbat, that he said, See, a little cloud as small as man's hands is coming out of the sea. And he said, Go up, say to Ahab, Hitch up and go down before the rain stops you. And in the meantime, it came to be that the heavens became black with clouds and wind, and there was a heavy rain while Ahab rode and went to Jezreel. And the hand of Yahuwah was on Eliyahu, and he girded up his loins and ran ahead of Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel. By the way, that's called swift-footedness. Ahab is riding a chariot downhill from the top of a mountain. Elisha, under the influence of the mighty hand of Yahuwah, outruns the chariot 50 kilometers. It's like 30 miles. Isn't that awesome? I love that story. You can pray to Yahuwah and he can make you faster than the chariots and the cars. It's a real story. He can also teleport you. That's in Acts. Philip. Oh, it's so good. Yahuwah's got all these kind of amazing tools and weapons in his arsenal, like the spirit of slumber. You know about that weapon? Yahuwah can fire that off on your enemies. Just make them all sleepy time instantly. You don't need a tranquilizer. I know some of you guys want to hook up with a veterinarian, be able to be like, hey, can I get some tranquilizer? You know what I'm saying? For my blowgun. I don't blame you. It's good tradecraft. Tranquilizers are incredibly effective. Chloroform's another one. Not as, somewhat effective, but it's more traceable. Spirit of slumber, untraceable. Can't detect it in the toxicology reports. Nobody's going to be able to pick that up on the blood screening. Yahweh can literally appoint it upon him, like King Saul when David is going down there to the camp to take his spear and his water jug. He's all like, the spirit of slumber came upon them mightily, and they're all sleeping. They're all asleep on their guard. All the guard posts that was supposed to be awake watching through the night, they all sleep now, son. They can't even wake up no matter what you do. That's awesome. I just love that kind of stuff, you guys. That's why I long for combat, but I don't. I do. I want that kind of combat. I so totally do, with spears and swords and shields and bucklers and horses and chariots and fire. It should be so salty. Anyways, you can always pray for the spirit of slumber to come upon your enemies and make them fall asleep like crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like, ask the Father to send confusion into the camp. Ask him to fall that slumber upon your enemies. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what we should pray for, that the Father would turn them. But if they're not going to stop doing their evil, that he would stop their hearts. Like, I pray that he stops the hearts of the wicked. It's called imprecatory prayer. I want the wicked to die. Understand that. Praying for your enemies is different, you guys. Understand that if they don't turn from their wicked ways, they need to die. They really do. Because if not, they're going to keep doing their wickedness and their abominations, and they're not going to stop. Like, a pedophile is going to offend on 100 other children. Understand that. That's like a reality. Like, I understand what that's an actual reality. So you got to pray that Yahuwah would stop these people no matter what it takes, because he knows if they're going to turn and repent or not. And we ask that indeed, while they still have time left on the earth, that they would turn. And if they won't, Yahuwah, you know it. So stop them in their tracks. Knock them down. That's what we pray, man, that he would topple their empires, because you got to understand, they made us in our education stand up and swear oaths of allegiance to these wicked ones. I know I talk about the Hippocratic Oath. I talk about physicians and doctors because they're often heralded in our society as the kind of the priest class. They really are. They've been kind of weaponized against us in a very specific way. I'm not trying to despair individual physicians or people that practice in that way. By no means am I trying to disrespect them in that regard. I'm trying to get people to understand there's a spiritual power that many of these people are under when they swear oaths of allegiance to these beings. Soldiers, police officers, even firefighter, people that swear oaths of office. Understand, if you don't study the origins of these oaths, you can fall victim to being spiritually bound to legal authority of these other gods, these immortals. Those that swear the Hippocratic Oath are swearing that allegiance to the gods of medicine, like Apollo, which is their god of knowledge, right? The god of reason. These gods are influencers of those. When you renounce those, right, you're separating. You're like, I don't agree with that stuff. Even if you didn't agree to it then, consciously, you agreed out of ignorance. It doesn't matter. It's like you tell a police officer, I didn't know the speed limit was 45 miles an hour. He's going to say ignorance of the law is not an exemption from the consequences that come for breaking the law. Like, that's a reality that we understand, okay? Many of you who are watching this, far more of you watching this, have sworn allegiance to another god every day that you went to school, every single day. You ready for this? I'm going to share with you guys a little. Let's go down a rabbit hole for a second. This one's a fun one. It's fun to see all the horrible, ridiculous evils that's been taking place forever. Take down these monsters. All right, let's jump in here. Let me screen share with you guys something here. Check this out. Let's go into the origins of the Pledge of Allegiance, because so many of you stood up every single day. When I was growing up in school, went to lots of different schools. They all required us, like literally the start of the day, we had to put our hand on our heart and swear an oath of allegiance to another mighty one, to another god. Check this out. This is where it comes from. This is from the Grand Lodge of Iowa, by the way. This is like literally from the Freemasons website. James B. Upham, a member of Converse Lodge in Malden, Massachusetts, was a man imbued with patriotic fervor. At the close of the last century, he was partner of the firm publishing The Youth's Companion, a juvenile periodical of Boston. One of his strong beliefs was that an American flag should be flown over every schoolhouse in America. You ever seen that? Stinking Masons, y'all. To this end, he persuaded his magazine to sponsor... one of his strong beliefs, to this end, he persuaded his magazine to sponsor a plan to sell flags to schools at cost. The idea of being so successful that 25,000 schools acquired flags in just 1 year. He also campaigned to have flags flown over public buildings. His success in this endeavor is clearly evident today. As a result, James B. Upham became known as the father of the movement to display flags in schools and public places. Upham had still another idea, that on Columbus Day, to Columbus, 1892, the 400th anniversary of the discovery of America, every public school in the land would hold a flag-raising ceremony under the most impressive circumstances, and all school children rededicated themselves in love and service to their country. Upham considered this as a national public school celebration of Columbus Day. The President of the United States, Benjamin Harrison, enthusiastically endorsed the plan and declared a national holiday for Columbus Day, October 12, 1892. There was great excitement in the schools throughout the land during the months preceding that great day of celebration. Committees were busy at school planning the Columbus Day program down to its finest detail. In preparing the suggested Columbus Day observance to be printed in the Youth's Companion, Upham hesitated when he came to the salute, the rededication, to be given by the students. This is them swearing the oath. It was at this point that Francis Bellamy, a member of the Little Falls Lodge number 181 at the Little Falls, New York, enters the story. Upham discussed his dilemma with his longtime friend Bellamy and asked for his help. On a warm August evening in 1892, Bellamy shut himself in his room to formulate the actual pledge. I pledge allegiance to my flag and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thus was our Pledge of Allegiance born, and it was proclaimed with great rejoicing throughout the land on October 21st, 1892. Those who knew Bellamy best knew that he had fulfilled a deep desire to compose a dignified message of loyalty, which would convey the trust and most notable sentiments of a devoted patriot towards his native land. And all Masons rightfully salute Brother Francis Bellamy, the author of the Pledge of Allegiance. Only 3 changes have been made to the pledge in the 100 years since it was written. At the National Flag Conference in Washington, D.C., June 14, 1923, the words, "the flag of the United States," were substituted for "my flag." The change was made on the grounds that those born in foreign countries might have in mind the flag of their native land when giving the pledge. We couldn't have that now, could we? The 1924 Flag Conference added, for the sake of greater definition, the words "of America." On Flag Day, 1954, President Dwight D. Eisenhower, 33rd degree Freemason, signed an act of Congress adding the words "under God." This is super important, you guys. Under God being added by a Freemason is because the God they're talking about is Lucifer. Do not ever misinterpret this for a second. Understand the God they refer to in the Pledge of Allegiance, when you swear into the military, when you swear into all these other things in the United States, this is the God they're talking about. It's the veiled one, okay? It's their one that's hidden away from the masses, but only the adepts are able to know his true origin, okay? Oh, for greater meaning and proper presentation when reciting the pledge, there should be only 3 pauses: after the word America, after stands, and after indivisible. This is the story of how the Pledge of Allegiance came into being and a long-delayed tribute to its author, Master Mason Francis Bellamy. Oof. That's where this comes from, you guys. This is where these people have infected themselves into our lives. You guys have sworn an oath to another God, to another nation, to another mighty one. That's like a spiritual door of the enemy. That's one of those things in your life that can be like a foothold that the enemy uses to get legal grounds to curse you, to like cause problems in your life, because you have taken these oaths. Like some of you have secrecy clauses that you have sworn under oath. So help me God. Understand, literally, Gimel Dalet, as it's rendered in the scriptures, was a god of fortune and luck in the Philistines. This is like the god on our money. It is a deity being invoked. Like when you look at the dollar bill and it says, "In God we trust." These are people talking hyperbole around you about who they're really referring to. Oof. From their own writings. Please understand. This is what takes place for people in the beginning phases of Freemasonry, okay? The Mother Council, or the Mother Jurisdiction, as the 33rd degree is known, resides in Washington, D.C. The significance of this council, other than the powers it possesses and the secret, sinister strategy of sedition it plots, is that it also possesses the 3 final secrets of the Freemasons. Initiates into the 32nd degree have these final fateful secrets withheld from them. They are simply told, "He has still not reached the light." As the initiate ascends the ziggurat of enlightenment, he's introduced first to the Osiris allegories, defining him as the sun god, and then the initiate is introduced to the concept of the great architect of the universe. In the beginning, God, the architect, was believed to have sent Osiris and Isis. This is basically like Ahab and Jezebel. They're like another incarnate version of that, you guys. This is like Nimrod and Semiramis, okay? This is Set, right? Set, Osiris, and Ishtar. All this stuff goes back to these Egyptians and this Babylonian paganism, these mystery religions. This is where they encode their language from and who their God is they're referring to. In the beginning, God the architect was believed to have sent Osiris and Isis, the male and female aspects of godhood, to help humankind. It will come as no surprise that this grand architect is not the God of Christianity or Judaism or Islam. The true God of mysticism and the Freemasons is Lucifer, and his unholy icons scurrilously adorn the American $1 bill, the all-seeing eye, and the unfinished pyramid. But we cannot actually show beyond a shadow of a doubt that Lucifer is the sun god, the eye-seeing eye, but can we actually show beyond a shadow of a doubt that Lucifer is the sun god, the all-seeing eye, and the architect of the universe? Yes, we can. Damon Wilson, Inside Information, informs us that the 33rd degree formally teaches that Lucifer is the architect of the universe. Freemasons teach Osiris is the god who is Lucifer, just as they teach that the all-seeing eye is also God or Lucifer. Just as both these symbols represent the great architect of the universe, Lucifer is called the great architect because the universe is his most significant work. Freemasons named their snake god an architect because he's not a creator god. For Lucifer created the universe from existing materials, just as architects do. The universe then is Lucifer's lofty temple and his greatest, most perfect work of architecture. Hence, Gnostics shockingly established the Royal Society of England and the Invisible College to be the first assembly of scientists dedicated to the wonders created by the great architect of the universe. Marks scribed into or onto architecture by Freemasons are symbols that indicate they are mere instruments of the great architect. This is why when you walk around your downtown, like I was talking about how I can go everywhere in this country and find this disgusting stuff, is because I can travel around a community and find the marks of dedication to Lucifer on the buildings of courthouses, police stations, conference halls, gathering places, Freemasonic lodges, Knights of Columbus gathering halls. It's everywhere, you guys, because they mark the territory of the tools that are here for the grand architect to use. The initiates of high degrees are maintained in the purity of Luciferian doctrine. Albert Pike wrote to the Supreme Council that they were to know Lucifer was indeed the secret god of the Masons. Pike further wrote that the glorious light that all Masons seek is the knowledge of who God is, for they believe Lucifer is the real God of the universe. When you guys take these pledges of allegiance, when you swear these oaths, please understand when they make you put your hand on a Bible or swear something, Yeshua literally said, let your yes be yes and your no be no. He said, don't swear by heaven or by earth. By heaven, for it is Yahweh's throne, or the earth, for it is his footstool. Like, let your yes be yes and your no be no. We should not participate in these systems because it is spiritually yoking us to another God, to the influence of another kingdom. And we're to have nothing to do with the unfruitful works of darkness, but we are supposed to expose them and reprove them, which is why I am here reading from their books, from their words, what they believe, so that you're not ignorant of those schemes of the devil and therefore are not taken captive by him to do his desire. Because fundamentally, from 2 Corinthians 4, remember 2 Corinthians 11, it says, we know that Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light, and his ministers, false prophets, do likewise. Lucifer, that's why a lot of pastors are literally false prophets of Lucifer. Lots of them are wearing that Masonic ring. Lots of the Baptist church predominantly is infected, most percentage wise. The highest concentration of them are in the Baptist church, which is why they got obelisks on the tops of all their buildings, you guys. They're still giving, they put an obelisk on the top of the building to capture the rays of light, God, Lucifer's light, when it's coming upon them to try to bring about the act of resurrection. That's why that's up there. That's what that thing literally is. Like, that's what a Christmas tree is when you bring it into your house. That's what these things are, you guys. They're phallus symbols. They're trying to gather in the rays of light. This is what these things are. They are a middle finger to Yahuwah. Like, he hates this stuff. Why we put it on our buildings? There's no difference between Ahab putting up an Asherah pole in the temple of Yah and people erecting this stuff in the houses of Yah. They're like, this is our church. We dedicate it to you, God. Thank you for giving us the means to build it. Here's this giant total phallus symbol. of this other god for you. We love you. We love you so much. Thank you for this building and this giant obelisk. Thank you. That's ridiculous. This is the stuff that should make your blood boil and make you want to go. Gotta come off the wall for a second. Page 500. Lucifer masquerades as an angel of light. Light is the Masonic symbol for intelligence, information, knowledge, and truth. Darkness is ignorance and evil. And the followers of Adonai, such as the Jews or the Muslims or Christians, or to the Jews or a Muslim or a Christian, Lucifer is the god of light and the god of good, the god who struggles against darkness and evil for humankind. Lucifer is the derivative of the term in Latin lucidus or lux, meaning light. One ought to be wary of any genitive words deriving from lux or light or Lucius, such as the Theosophist organization like Lucius Trust. The organization that bears this name is a New Age publisher of books supporting the New Age movement and world government. That's where so many of those mandatory reading books come from, you guys. The stinking Lucifer Trust. Damn these people. If we can throw off our ignorance from their schemes, you guys, if we can then learn to walk in the authority and the anointing, those people that were sitting there under the influence of Yeshua, they were sitting at his feet, they were being saturated in the word. They literally, John, James, and Peter got to go up with him on Mount Hermon, and they got to see him be transfigured there. They got to see him. He went up to the very mountain where the fallen angels came down and transformed themselves into different creatures. They left their heavenly estate and they took on the bodily form of men to go have sex with women and teach them all of this disgusting knowledge, right? There on that very mountain, Yeshua showed that he was the son of Elohim, radiant brilliance. He was brighter than the sun in its shining. Like he showed them shining ones who was the real brilliant light of all of creation. Like that, he heralded over them in victory that he had come, the Son of Righteousness had come with healing in his wings. You know what? They got to witness that. Yahweh literally shouted from the heavens, thundered on the mountain like he did at Sinai. This is my son, my beloved, in whom I am well pleased. Hear him. That word is Shema. It's like hear and obey him. And when we do that, when we walk in that authority and that understanding and identification that that is the Messiah, that we are to live how he lived, walk how he walked, in boldness and in courage, to confidently go out and do what he told us to do, to raise the dead, to heal the sick, to cast out demons, and to loosen the bonds of oppression that are around the necks of so many people. When we do that, he walks with us and he empowers us to live boldly and courageously for his ways. And you know what? We can be a counterforce to these wicked people. I love you guys so much. I so appreciate you going on this journey with me. And even though the days may be evil, and even though we may have all kinds of crazy, insane, psychopathic monsters out there trying to run the world, you know what? All it takes is a few good men, a few righteous men to rise up, cast off all of these disgusting matters, repent of these sins, cleanse the land. And this, we will get to see Yahweh arise and our enemies be scattered. And may those who hate him flee before his face. I love you all. I'll talk to you soon.